Hey guys, welcome back to Pocket Saga. In today's videos, we are gonna see what if Ash and Misty had harem in locked house. The name of the story is Trials and Tribulations by Shagty 2. So do check out the story. Let's get into the video. It was a beautiful evening in Bass City. The sun was lazily setting in the low valley. A cool breeze rustled the lush green shrubbery. All was still. The scene would have been perfect if it was quiet. Sci-Fi Channel. A masculine voice cried out. We watched Titanic. A feminine voice shouted, more fiercely than her counterpart. Will the two of you just chill? A third, also masculine voice, said, pleading with the others. Shut up, Brock. The other two screamed. A hitting sound, a cry of pain and a body hitting the ground was heard. Echoing through the hills. Misty climbed out of the hole they had fallen into, with Togepi in her arms. Now 18, she had developed into a very beautiful young woman, her beauty in full blossom. Which was only hinted at when she was younger. Wearing a yellow shirt that exposed her belly button, red suspenders, and cut-off jeans, she almost looked the same as she did when she was 12. Except for the fact her hair was longer and fuller and was kept in a French-style braid. Her blue eyes seemed to light up as she got out of the dank and musty trap. Up came Pikachu, the cute electric Pokémon. Also happy to get out, who was lifted up by Ash, then the trainer came out himself. Still a little immature and thick-skulled, Ash was a lot wiser and smarter than he was when he started his journey 7 years ago. He also was taller and more muscular, in a lean sort of way. Realizing his dream just 2 years earlier, he still trained harder to become the Pokémon Grand Master. Which was the highest honor any trainer ever got. Few realized the hard work and practice it would take, and even those who did never got there. He still kept his hair in the same way, and still dressed the same way, blue jeans, black shirt, and his trademark vest and cap. His light brown eyes caught a glimpse of Misty and he almost blushed. Everyone apparently forgot about Brock, who still laid prone on the ground. The girl-crazy trainer had also gotten taller and more muscular, also getting renowned as a great breeder. Trainers from far and wide visited him and his website to get tips on how to feed and breed their Pokémon. Brock's second largest ambition, girls, wasn't getting as much success. He hadn't been on a date in months and the few dates he did manage to get were with a bunch of freaks. He had at one time tried to change himself, but that hadn't worked, so he still dressed in the same similar style, brown jeans, orange shirt, and green multi-pocketed vest. Misty T. Hey, are having an alien invaders from the planet Pants marathon and I am not going to miss it. Besides, you've seen Titanic thousands of times. Ash said, brushing of his hat. Well, you can see your alien people some other time. Misty replied, undoing her long ponytail, I am going to watch Titanic again. Ash was trying to come up with a counter-argument, but his mind went mushy as he stared at Misty brushing her hair. The sunset's light clearly framed and highlighted her hair and nicely complemented her awesome figure. I could die a horrible, painful death and this would make it all worth it. Ash thought, lost in his thoughts, involuntary staring at her. Brock meanwhile had just climbed out of the hole, and noticed Ash staring at Misty, a very girl-crazy type expression a la Brock on his face. Man, he has it bad. Thought Brock as he started brushing of his clothes. Misty finally realized that Ash was staring at her. Blushing, Misty asked, and why are you staring at me like that for, Ash? She batted her eyelashes. Snapped out of his daydream, Ash was at a loss for words. His intelligent answer was, yes, Ash. Misty asked sweetly. I just can't believe, how? Yes. Now Ash, trying to cover his tracks, was digging himself into a very deep hole. He finally came up with an answer. I just can't believe how anyone could be so ugly, he said triumphantly. Misty's face just turned beet red, speed lines formed in the background. Oh, she uttered, trying to find the perfect words that described how she felt. Hey, Misty, you sound like if you're playing with yourself. Ash happily replied, feeling like he was on a roll. With those words, he signed his fate. In retrospect, he would realize that was the turning point in his life, when all things changed. Brock, having obviously more sense than Ash, had a feeling right now wasn't a good time to drudge up old memories. He foolishly got in between Misty and Ash. He held back Misty as best as he could. Now, Misty, he began, trying to calm her down. His valiant efforts made no difference, as Misty took out her trusty mallet. "Out of the way, Brock," Misty said, hitting him upside of his head. He dropped like a sack of dirty diapers. Misty advanced on Ash and proceeded to use his face to imprint the side of the mallet. "Jerk," Misty said as she headed up to the Pokemon Center with Togepi in one hand and Brock on her shoulder, leaving Ash on the ground, or rather in La La Land. Pikachu, who was picking an apple tree nearby, came down to find Ash saying hi to the valley floor. "Pikapi?" he inquired as he licked his best friend's face. "What, Misty, not again?" Ash came to with a goofy grin on his face. His eyes snapped open, to find Pikachu, sweat dropping. "Oh, heya, Pikachu," Ash said in recognition. He sprung up and looked around for the Pokemon Center. He grabbed his things and Pikachu and went to meet up with the others. Nurse Joy of Bass City, second cousin to Joy in Cerulean, and sister-in-law to the Joy in New Island, was having a bad day. Since this morning, 5 Pokemon came in badly poisoned. 2 didn't make it, but not because she gave up, no sir. But still she felt guilty. As if she could have done something. Then in the afternoon, 2 trainers and their Pokemon came in also poisoned. She had just come out of the when some redhead and a goofy-looking guy kept on hitting on her. Coupled with the stress of the day, and having nobody to talk to, she just turned furious. "Leave me the hell alone, creep. Just bugger off and die somewhere." She felt even worse immediately. The guy's expression just dropped, leaving Ian's face full of depression and hurt. He hung his head in shame and stalked off, leaving his redhead friend. 3 rooms, please, Nurse Joy," she said as politely as possible. Handing her the keys, Joy tried to look friendly and said, "Hey, look, I don't bite or anything." Taking the keys, the redhead said, "Could have fooled me." With that she walked off. It was later that evening, when the 5 of them, Brock, Ash, Misty, Togepi, and Pikachu, were eating in the cafeteria. Brock was still looking kind of down. And was away for quite some time, muttering he had to go to the pharmacy. Ash and Misty surprisingly didn't argue, but remained silent to each other. Pikachu tried to break the silence, but to no avail. And went back to his bottle of ketchup. They were finally done, and left to go to their rooms. They took the elevator to the living rooms, but Misty and Ash had given the keys to Brock for safekeeping. Because of the secure pockets in Brock's vest. "Hey, Brock, can I have my key, please?" Ash asked. Yeah sure, man. But wait a second, there is something I want to show you guys." "It's in the first room," Brock said. As he unlocked the door to room number 1. Ash and Misty were too tired to argue but just went inside. As soon as they stepped inside, he asked to see Togepi and Pikachu. As Pikachu went over to Brock and Togepi was in his arms, he ran for the door, and slammed it shut. Ash and Misty leapt up, startled by Brock's odd behavior. They tried to open the door, but found it was locked. "Brock, what are you doing?" Misty yelled through the door. Brock's voice was heard through the door. "Now listen up you two. The letter on the box will explain everything. I'm giving you 2 till sunrise. Now talk. I'm sick of the arguing and the pain I go through every day, so damn it find out where you stand with each other." With that, light footsteps were heard and the door next door was shut. Misty was still trying to get Brock to open the door, not entirely too thrilled to spend a night alone, with no interruptions with Ash, while Ash walked over to the box and opened it. The box was rather large. Almost a foot in length and 2 feet tall, and looked like it was about to burst its seams. Ash opened the box rather unceremoniously, and most of its contents fairly exploded in his face. They were all condoms. In all sizes, shapes and colors. "What the hell?" he yelled. Misty gave up on pleading and threatening Brock and walked over to Ash, trying to look over his shoulder to get a good look at what made him yell like that. She pressed up against him, her chest sticking his back. Ash almost jumped 10 feet into the air, his face turning red. Misty saw the stack of condoms on the table and the floor, almost covering the letter. "What the hell? Hentai. Pervert," she screamed. Anger flooded through her body at the very thought of being some sex toy, but a corner of her mind was slightly flattered. "Me? What did I do? I don't even know who these are for." Ash yelled back, but backing up, inadvertently backing up against the bed. "Yeah I get it. You probable. Why had Brock set this up so you can get some? Pervert." Misty yelled, whipping out her trusty mallet. With that, it kissed Ash's face, knocking Ash out, making him faint on the bed. Misty put back her mallet, and picked up the letter. It read like this. Yo, guys. Alright, I know you both are pissed off at me for doing this, but it is necessary. Look, Ash, you are 17 and Misty, you are 18, alright, soon 19, geez, give me a break. And you both act like if you are 4. Now I know that Ash is definitely in love with you, Misty, and I suspect that you feel the same. The condoms are there just for a gag, but in case the two of you want. Use them. Now, you have till sunrise. Use the best of it. Brock. Misty just dropped the letter in shock. She always thought that Ash was only thought of her as one of his best friends, and that was it. It was true, though, that she was madly in love with Ash, but she always tried to play it off, always saying it was the age difference. She was about to tear up the letter, when she noticed there was writing on the back. P.S. Misty, he does like you, so do whatever you have to do. Anything. Misty took a deep breath and turned around. Ash was starting to recover. And shook his head, trying to get rid of the stars blurring his vision. You like me? She asked, looking at Ash inquisitively. That got rid of all the stars. Of course not. Preposterous. He said rather quickly, without thinking. Oh really? Yeah, we are just friends. Good friends. Ash squeaked. Misty started to pace the room. So if I were to say, I like you to, it wouldn't matter, wouldn't it? No, not at all. He stammered out. So if I were to. Misty continued, but cut herself off as she played with her bright red suspenders. She pulled them down, letting them hang loose at her sides. Misty, what are you doing? A very frightened Ash asked. Oh nothing, it's just, my clothes are feeling rather tight, and I would feel more comfortable with them off, she sarcastically replied as pulled off her shirt and pulled down her pants, revealing her undies. Hashtag to tell you the truth, my pants are feeling rather tight about now. Ash thought nervously. Misty undid her ponytail and ran her fingers through her hair. Misty, squeaked Ash, trying to tear his gaze away from her. Hashtag my goodness, this is perfection, Ash is all he thought. Misty walked over to Ash slowly, in a seductive manner. She leaned over him, showing lots of cleavage. No. Ash repeated, closing his eyes, trying not to succumb to Misty's charms. Are you sure, Ash? She asked in a low sensuous whisper. Right in his ear. And what if I told you take me right here, right now, would you? Ash replied, think car wreck. Aren't you even tempted? She asked, fiddling with her top. Ash opened his eyes with Misty leaning over him. Ash, okay, about now is the time I could die that death happily, Ash, he thought. Misty stood up from over Ash, thinking hashtag man, he should have broken by now. What am I doing wrong? Ash was about to break, and was about to shout out he liked her, but he just couldn't do it. I can't do it, he screamed in an anguished wail. Do what, have sex? A confused Misty asked. No, you don't understand, he said as he got up off the bed and stared at the opposite wall. Look, I am in love with you and all, but... Misty was happier than she had ever been and asked. But what? If I had said yes just now, you would have thought I only wanted to have sex, and just have rejected me like some pervert who just wanted to get between your legs. Now I know you don't like me or anything, but you didn't have to go so far in trying to admit my feelings for you. I just hope you can forgive me for falling in love with you, he said. Ash, I do like you. I wholeheartedly mean that, Misty said to Ash. Ash still had his face turned to the wall. Misty, I would hug you about now, but you are almost naked, he told her. She looked down at herself. And tears welled up in her eyes as she thought, hashtag geez, he really cares for me and here I am trying to seduce him. She started putting her clothes back on and started to silently weep. Feeling awful about the way she acted towards Ash. Ash turned around as he heard her crying. He sat down with her and hugged her. Misty broke down completely. Brock had put Pikachu and Togepi in room number 2 and he slept in room number 3. He awoke to light tapping on his door. He woke up with a start. This better not be Team Rocket, he muttered as he got up. Clad in only boxers, he slipped on a muscle tee on and went to answer the door. Who is it? Brock asked, irritated. Nurse Joy. Brock pinched himself to make sure he wasn't dreaming. Yelping in pain, he opened the door. Come on in, Nurse Joy. Nurse Joy felt kind of awkward to be in this guy's room, but she felt obligated to make things right. Is there anything I can do for you, Nurse Joy? Brock asked, folding his arms. Nurse Joy was taken aback by Brock. She hadn't gotten a good look at him earlier on, and took in his square jaw and muscular body. Well, no time for that, Joy. She scolded herself, imagining what could happen. Look, I'm sorry for the way I acted earlier on. I was really stressed out, but I had no right to snap at you. Please accept my apology. Nurse Joy got up and was about to leave, but was stopped by Brock. Hey, wait, Nurse Joy. I'm the one who should be apologizing. I'm sorry I bothered you when you were so busy. Wow. Good looking and nice, Joy thought. Brock beckoned her back in. Tell me about your day. I've got coffee. Misty stopped crying after a while and fell asleep in Ash's arms. Ash looked at her for down a her and thought, like a perfect angel. He picked up Misty and tucked her in the bed. He grabbed a pillow from the bed and was about to lie down and get some sleep. He was asked the question he asked himself almost every day. When did you start to like me? Misty asked. Ash asked, making sure he heard her right. You heard me. When? Ash got up and sat down on the bed. Well, I guess I started to like you when we got to get know each other. At first I thought you were an irritating, paranoid, stuck-up prick, then I realized you just didn't take nothing from nobody, Ash said. As he continued, he cracked a grin. Richie found that out the hard way, Misty blushed, chuckling. As we got to become better friends, you got from being intolerable, to being a good friend, then best friends, then. Yeah, there was like this one corner of my mind, where I felt we should be more, then one day, it came into full realization that I was in love with you. At first I thought you just hit me upside the head too many times, but if you did, I wanted more. Misty got off the bed, pushing the covers off of her. She sat down next to Ash. Well, she began, I started to like you the first day I met you. When I found out how my bike got totaled. I respected you right then. Blushing, Ash replied, it was nothing, Ray. He was cut off by Misty putting a slender finger on his lips. No, it wasn't. You could have been seriously hurt, killed even. And yet you still did it selflessly. And when you went to get back your Metapod, I saw firsthand how stupid. Hey, reckless. Hey. And unbelievably brave you could be. Oh. With that, Misty got up and started to pace. The clincher was when we fought Sabrina. Seeing you there, almost dead, sniff, I thought my heart broke in two. Ash got up and hugged Misty in a comforting embrace. He looked down at her and smiled. He closed his eyes and smelled her hair. She looked up at him and they locked eyes. Alright fella, steady as she goes, he thought. To himself as he leaned in slowly to kiss her, remembering every movie he had seen with a scene like this. Screw the movies. Misty thought to herself as she grabbed his head and kissed him. It was a deep and passionate kiss that sent gentle waves of electricity through them. Tongues probing each other's mouths, hands moving all over the other's bodies, they fell on the ground, rolling around. Both of them freed a hand for a condom. So next thing you know, Snicker Joyln got a face full of pee. Nurse Joy managed to get put before she deteriorated into full, uncontrollable laughter. Brock was on the floor, holding his belly and laughing. The past hour with Joy had gone by swiftly, the two talking about daily events and old stories. Brock managed to make coffee and had some rice balls. Joy was becoming more and more attracted to Brock as each moment passed by. Brock got up from the floor and sat back down, wiping a tear from his eye. Suddenly an awkward pause came, the two out of conversation material. Brock was thinking of something new to talk of while Nurse Joy looked at Joy, figured what the hell. And leapt on top of Brock. The two started making out passionately and wildly, like if there was no tomorrow. They landed on the ground, falling down from the chair. Brock reached up both arms, prepared to pinch himself, but then thought why do I want this dream to stop? Instead, he reached into his pocket. For 7 years, two people have been attracted to each other, but always denied it to themselves and to each other. This night, in this city, they finally admitted to each other the way how they felt. Being that they were young and hormonal, they decided to express their love in the best physical way possible, sex. The two, Ash and Misty, were making out on the floor of their room. One arm wrapped around the other and their free hand probing the floor for one of the many condoms that were on it. The two were too busy to hear the clink on the window. As a grappling hook found purchase on the window sill. They didn't hear the window being lifted, nor did they hear the small, marble-like smoke pellet hit the ground, or the *PHISSS it gave off when it emptied its contents into the air. A shapely red head clad in thigh-high black boots, a micro skirt, and a white shirt with the distinctive large red R that gave way to her organization, Open Jew. Saint enough to reveal the small black shirt that revealed her toned middle, climbed through the window. Her clear blue eyes tried to adjust to the darkness and the smoke that filled the room. The red D looked next to her, trying to find out where her partner and best friend was. "James, get over here," she hissed angrily. All right, give me a sec. Geez." A masculine voice sighed from outside. With a bit of a racket. He climbed into the room. In a uniform almost like his partner's, though with long loose-fitting pants stuffed into normal-sized boots, and a tight black shirt tucked into his pant, which was almost hidden by his white outer shirt that also had the distinctive red R emblazoned on the front. It nicely complemented his lean figure. He ran his fingers through his shoulder-length turquoise hair, putting it back in place. His sparkling green eyes met those of his partner, and he nodded. "Meowth, music," she whispered, agitated. "Hold your rapid ashes. It's coming." "A brew," Klein accented voice whispered just as agitated. A clicking sound was heard and then the sinister music boomed into the room. The two Team Rockets gave each other the nod and then started their trademark motto. All the while doing silly posturing. "Prepare for trouble. Yes, and make it double. To protect the world from devastation. To unite all peoples within our nation. To denounce the evils of truth and love. To extend our reach to the stars above. Jesse, James, Team Rocket, blast off at the speed of light. Surrender now, or prepare to fight." A cat-like figure jumped through the window and landed in front of them and finished the motto off by saying, "Meowth, that's right." The three looked at each other as they realized that no one had interrupted them or shocked them. "Maybe we're in the wrong room," James said as he started to cough from the smoke. Jessie whacked him over the head with her handy paper fan, as Meowth started to walk around the room. "Be quiet, the twerps might be asleep," Jessie scolded to her friend. Meowth called out from the other side of the room, "Hey, if they aren't sleeping now they soon will be." Jessie looked at James, as if he knew what Meowth was talking about, but James looked back at her also confused. They walked over to where Meowth was calling from. They started to laugh. Ash and Misty were thoroughly enjoying themselves and each other. As they kissed harder and faster, Misty started to remove Ash's shirt. Ash's hand was still on the quest to find the elusive condom, when he heard an English accented voice say, "There ya go buddy," and placed the protection in his hand. With a quick thank you, he went back to his business. As Misty was about to remove her shirt, it finally dawned on him. "A kissing noise, Misty. Kissing noise, it's Team Rocket kissing noise," he managed to sputter out. "What?" she managed to yell out as her face turned as red as her hair. She slipped back on her shirt and jumped up. Ash followed suit and they both yelled, "It's Team Rocket." By that time, the three villains had broken down laughing, Jessie on the bed, and Meowth on the floor rolling and James just standing there. "What do you guys want?" Ash asked exasperated. "Yeah, why don't you just leave us alone?" Misty added. "So the two of you lovebirds can get back to your business," the three Rockets said in unison, batting their eyelashes. Misty was about to beat them all down when Ash just held her back. "No, I have a plan that will make everybody happy, and we could get back to, what we were doing." With that, he stepped forward with a very confident smirk on his face. "That's the pot calling the kettle black," he said directly to Jessie and James. What's he talking about?" was the reply. He walked over to them, and looked them over. "So you mean to tell me that the two of you aren't together yet?" Jessie started to laugh a little too high-pitched as James started to make threatening gestures at Ash. "Me with him? Don't insult me," Jessie almost shouted at Ash. Yeah, what she said," a crestfallen James said. Ash looked at James and noticed the hurt written all over his face. #O. Hash, he thought, as he tried to patch things up. #Where's Brock where you need him? In room number 2, Pikachu was busy sleeping until he was awakened by some odd moaning and someone saying, "Yes, yes, yes." Hashtag 'bout time he thought to himself, recognizing Nurse Joy's voice. Hashtag now if only they could keep it down. Pikachu thought as he rolled over and put a pillow over his and Togepi's head. Hey, Jessie, you ever talk to your partner about this? Ash asked. Jessie looked at James. James tried to recover but wasn't fast enough. With that one look, she knew. Jessie stepped back in shock. Anger welling up in her. You do don't you? You bastard. You never told me a thing. Not a damn thing. With that, she left through the window. Meowth tried to go after her, to stop her, to do something. But was stopped by James. No, Meowth, she is right. It doesn't matter anyway, she doesn't feel the same way about me. With that he closed his eyes as if holding back tears. James, don't speak like that. You know Jessie, it's just probably the shock. That's all. Hey, James, he asked his friend as he noticed that James wasn't answering him. Ash walked over to him. Hey look, I'm really sorry. Ash began as he started to put his hand on James's shoulder. Suddenly, James opened his eyes, red with rage, and an uncharacteristic scowl on his face. He brushed the hand of his shoulder. It's your fault, he yelled at Ash. James gave him a straight kick in the gut, then spun around and smashed his elbow in the side of Ash's face, bruising it. Caught completely by surprise by the attack, Ash went down on the floor. Misty whipped out her mallet and tried to hit James upside his head with it, as James was about to pick up Ash. He leapt out of the way, doing a no-hands backflip. The mallet instead came down on Ash's gut, knocking the air out of him in a loud, woof. Meowth tried to leap on top of him, but was smashed into the wall hard, and the Pokémon passed out. James went back over to Misty and applied bone-cracking pressure on her hand, forcing her to drop the mallet. He threw her into the wall, knocking her out. Ash leapt up, kinda pissed off that this guy laid hands on his girl. Ash started to attack James, launching a stiff uppercut at him. It caught James square on the jaw, sending him reeling back. Stars started to cloud his vision, but he shook them off. Just in time to get a karate chop to the base of his neck, bringing him to his knees, and then a spinning jump kick that made him sprawl out onto the floor. James leapt up, GGing down and using his hurt and anger to get him back up. He threw a lazy kick at Ash, and just as predicted, Ash caught it. James hopped on his other foot and gave Ash the hardest punch he could muster straight at his nose. It went wide but caught the other guy right on his temple, almost knocking him out. On sheer willpower alone, Ash fought the losing battle with the darkness that beckoned him. He tried to shake the dizziness off, and jumped away from James, trying to recover. James was also in bad shape, but he could have taken more pain if he had to. Hashtag damn it, this hurts like hell. He thought to himself as he tried to glare at Ash. He knew there was only supposed to be one other guy, but how come it looked like three? Ash was in bad shape too, and he didn't really feel like fighting. He felt more like taking 2 Tylenol and sleep for a couple days. Ash searched through the haze that was his mind, trying to think of a better and less painful solution. Finally it hit him. James, I am sorry about everything. But I honestly thought that the feelings were mutual. You know, once my head clears, I'm really going to enjoy kicking your ass. Look, I mean it. I really thought you two were a couple or something. James looked at Ash as if he were nuts. And what made you think that? The way you guys looked at each other and treated each other. Even though you two argued a lot, and stuff. I figured that if Misty and I do it and we like each other, then you two must really like each other. Makes sense, doesn't it? James sighed, letting the anger and hurt fade away. Well, I'm sorry too. I better go see how Meowth is doing. He walked over to Meowth and revived him as Ash did the same for Misty. Hey, Mist, how ya feeling? Ash asked anxiously. Whoa, I've seen better days, but I'll be fine. She answered. Ash hugged her and gave her a quick peck. Misty gently pushed him off, and walked over to James, a smile on her face. James backed up into the wall, nervously. Suddenly, he felt the worst pain any man could feel using a knee. He doubled over in pain, clutching his abused privates. The 2 other males turned away, with pained expressions on their faces. Jerk, Misty said simply before going back over to Ash. Misty, we have a crisis. We've got to help out James with Jesse. Oh, love, how romantic. Misty sighed, as hearts and such appeared behind her. Right. Ash deadpanned, look first things first, damage control. We find Jesse. James called, starting to recover, then what? Don't know. I'm making it up as I go along. Ash said as the rest face faulted underscore. Jesse had trudged through the thick forest near Bass City to her destination, the Team Rocket encampment. It was a plain little clearing, with a small trainer they had rented. And a large fire they had set up and 3 sleeping bags around the merry blaze. Nearby, a small stream trickled by, providing fresh water. Jesse sat down on the ground near the fire. Numb. That was the best word that described how she felt. #Oh James, she thought. Just thinking about him made her feel sorrow that broke through the dam of the numbness that always kept her from feeling. #Now why did you have to fall in love with me? Jessie checked herself, stifling such thoughts into submission, succumbing to the numbness again. She quietly made a measly dinner, ate, and got ready for bed. Putting one more log into the fire before she closed her eyes, she thought, I'm sorry James, but I can't love you, no matter what. It's for the best. As she riffed off, the words sounded hollow. Even in her own head. 5 years ago. Hey Jessie, stay behind a minute, Giovanni had told her. Kind of nervous, Jessie slowly sat down on one of the chairs Giovanni had in his office. James and Meowth looked at their friend, and hesitantly left the room. Now, Jessie, the boss began, in that sinister voice of his, I've been keeping an eye on your team as of late. You've had a few flukes. A couple near wins, but still failure. Jessie had bowed her head, and tried to argue. But, boss. Suddenly very angry, Giovanni slammed his fist on the table. Damn it, stop with the fucking excuses. You know I was thinking of getting you all killed the other day. Jessie, with her head still bowed, nodded. Giovanni continued. Failure after failure, your team has let me down. You and your team have disgraced your uniforms over and over. Now remember, the only reason why you and your associates aren't dead is because of your potential. So, that is why I will split your team. With that Jessie snapped her head up, almost taking out Giovanni's eye with her hair. Her yes were shimmering, full of tears. Please, sir, she begged, don't do this. I will do anything you ask, just please don't separate us. Quote. Giovanni leaned in closer, a sinister smile forming on his thin lips. Anything? He asked evilly. Anything. She bowed her head once more. 5 years ago, Team Rocket HQ. Team Rocket headquarters was much larger than most people realized. Including the large building that people entered to, the surrounding 20 acres also belonged to Team Rocket. The large building, 10 stories in full height, also ran another 10 stories underground. On sub-basement 4, resided the unrivaled leader of Team Rocket, Giovanni. His room was clearly the largest in all of the building, seeing as to how it took up the entire floor. The only door to his room was flung open and a young woman was unceremoniously thrown out, naked. She landed hard on the clean wooden tiles outside. The door was quickly shut, leaving the figure in the dark hallway. She hugged her knees, covering herself. The door swung back open, and the resident of the room threw some clothes at the curled-up figure. Well, Jessie, you were a pretty damn good lay. At least we find out what you are good at, Giovanni said looking down at her and sneering. Jessie just sat there and struggled into her clothes, trying not to show any more of herself to Giovanni. Finally she asked him, does my team stay together, sir? Giovanni knelt down beside her. Then quick as a snake he grabbed her strewn hair and yanked her head back. Jessie stifled a gasp of pain. He let go of her hair and began to fondle her. You know, we have to do this again. Next time, my dear, next time. And yes, your team stays together all because you're nothing but a whore. A stupid, promiscuous, cock-sucking bitch. Now get out of here. I don't want people to think that I deal with prostitutes. He stopped and got up. As he went inside, he stopped. And looked behind. You know, I think you enjoyed it too. He slammed the door behind himself. Jessie got up, tears streaming down her face. Walking on unsteady legs, she managed to find her way to one of the many bathrooms in the HQ. Thankfully empty, she went into a stall, lowered the cover, sat on it and cried. She sobbed for a good long while, almost an hour. When she finished, she went over to the sink. Jessie looked into the mirror, at first not recognizing the face that stared back at her. This person's face was all a mess, a nasty bruise forming around her eye. Cheeks puffy and tear-streaked, eyes bloodshot, and a split lip with blood and other fluids running down her chin. Remembering what the other fluids were, she dashed back into the stall and threw up. Jessie brought up as much as she could. Feeling weak and nauseous, she struggled back to the sink. The rocket washed her face, not even looking into the mirror. Jessie grabbed some paper towels and dried her face. After looking herself over, she wiped the blood between her legs. Fresh tears sprang to her face as she did this, realizing that to be with the one she was saving herself for. She gave up herself to stay with him. Jessie and James' cabin, the woods. James paced the floor of the cabin, the old boards creaking under his weight. He took another look at his watch, checking the time again. The fourth time that minute. He sighed in exasperation. James was dressed in a black cashmere sweater and designer blue jeans. His sneakers squeaked a little as he turned. The mail. Rocket was waiting impatiently for his best friend to get back, so they could catch the concert. James huffed and sat down in a chair, one of three in the cramped living room. Suddenly, the door opened, revealing a bedraggled Jessie. "What took? Oh my God," was his cry as he saw her. Jessie was a total mess, her normally immaculately groomed hair in disarray all over her face and her uniform totally messed up. He rushed over to her, ready to give any assistance if needed. "I'm fine, really. Just a bit of an accident, that's all," was her reply. "Like hell it is. You look like if you went through a cement mixer." "Look, I said I'm fine," was the angered reply. Well, her temper is still there, so she is fine he reasoned. As relief flooded through his body, he realized he almost lost her, his best friend. And the woman he loved. He hugged her tightly, as if she might go away and never come back. His embrace comforted Jessie, but when she looked up at James, she saw the Giovanni's head. Anger, frustration, and helpless rage boiled up in her, as she looked at his hated face. He was sneering at her, taunting her, making sure she knew well who was in charge. In the corner of her mind, Jessie realized it was James. But the rest of her didn't care. She pushed him off, with a quick elbow to the gut. He stumbled back, the pain spreading through his stomach. "Don't touch me." The voice that spoke to James wasn't that of Jessie's but that of some ice-cold person. A voice that gave no room for question. A voice filled with cold fury. The worst kind. "Geez, I'm sorry Jessie. But you didn't have to act like that he began but was cut off when she uppercutted him in his jaw. James felt something give way, and ice-cold pain erupted in his face. He fell heavily on the ground. He looked up at Jessie. Hurt radiating through his eyes. No compassion or mercy met his gaze, just bloodshot eyes filled with hate. She tried to kick him while he was down, but he leapt up, as fast as he could. "Jessie, please," he started, but a front kick to his stomach shut him up. Moving silently and rapidly, she punched him in his broken jaw, snapping his head back. Jessie grabbed his arm and held it up. As she punched his ribs repeatedly, like if he were a punching bag. She jumped behind him and jerked his arm up as high as it could go, and beyond, breaking the bone. She dropped the limp arm. And held him up, as she once again went in front of him. Jessie head-butted him in his nose, pulping it. As James started to drop, she stepped down hard on his foot. He dropped like a rock, and in the process broke his ankle. James was in a haze of pain and hurt. He was about to go to the blissful darkness that beckoned to him, but then something tore him back. Weak. He felt pain. Pathetic. He felt more pain. "I should have done this since I first met you. Nothing but pain." James opened his eyes, trying to place the voice with the face. He hoped it wasn't who he thought it was, but, the voice. The familiar features, it was her. Like she taught him years ago, he did it. "Please, Rumika, I'll do as you say, just stop please." He begged with his last bit of strength. Visions of his early youth spun in front of his eyes, Rumika lashing his back with that accursed whip of hers, him, all strung up like a puppet. Her, going over and over again, about how this was good for him. It would teach him the proper, social grace and manners he required to be a proper gentleman. Those nights spent, tied up, his back wet and sticky with blood, his face wet with tears. Jessie snapped out of it when she heard what he whimpered. She looked down at him. Then she looked down at herself. Hashtag my god, what am I doing, hash she thought. Underscore the present. Jessie woke up in a cold sweat, the memories. And now dreams, back unbidden. She was in the small Team Rocket encampment, a mile or two away from the Pokemon Center. It was simple enough, just a trailer, a canoe, and 3 sleeping bags near a now burnt-down fire. The young Rocket got up, and stretched her back, getting the kinks from her restless sleep out of her system. She turned at the other 2 sleeping bags. A sorrowful expression on her face. Hashtag all of that for nothing. It comes down to this, hash she thought. With a sigh she rolled up the bags and made a small breakfast for herself. Brock woke up with a start. His surroundings unfamiliar with him, and a pressing weight on his chest. He looked down, Nurse Joy, asleep on his chest, a smile on her face. The Pokemon groomer gently slid her off of him and got out of the bed. As he gathered their clothes up from around the small room, a wide grin spread across his face, reminders of the night before. Slipping on a pair of trunks and a t-shirt, he grabbed the keys to the next room. And started to whistle a tune. Brock unlocked the door, and popped his head in, hoping not to disturb his friends, who he hoped would be asleep. They were asleep on the bed. Ash's arm around Misty's waist, but he also spotted James and Meowth on the ground. James was enjoying a rather peaceful, dreamless slumber when rough hands reached up and grabbed, shaking him out of sleep. "Aw come on Jess, just 5 more minutes and I promise I'll make whatever you like," he whined, still halfway asleep. 2 slaps to his face got him right up. All right, but you don't have to be so rough about it. Hey wait a minute, you're not Jessie." "No duh. Now what are you doing here?" Brock angrily demanded, glaring furiously at James. James raised his hands in mock surrender. "Just ask the 2 on the bed." Brock went over to the bed, his fierce gaze still frozen on James, watching his every move. The turquoise-haired Rocket did the same thing, rubbing his sore face. "Yo, Ash, wake up. Team Rocket's here," Brock said, shaking Ash. Ash woke up, careful not to awaken Misty. He turned around, seeing who woke him up. "Oh, morning Brock. James and Meowth are going to be with us for a while." "Love problems and the such," Ash said, rubbing the sleep out of his eyes. He gently shook Misty, trying to get her out of bed. Then he froze, realizing what he was about to do. Brock was already stepping back, slowly and warily. "Ash, have you gone nuts? You almost woke her," Brock whispered furiously. "I think we better just step back." "Maybe she didn't notice," Ash said, hoping wistfully. Then just as to contradict him, Misty stirred, and woke up, angry beyond measure. "Can't you see a lady's trying to get her beauty sleep?" she screamed, getting big on the 2. "Didn't she read the note?" Brock whispered to Ash. "Yup," he replied, a grin forming on his face. 2 hours later, the group was downstairs, enjoying a hearty breakfast of pancakes and sausages. While informing Brock of the situation with Jessie, Brock of course told them what happened to him last night, of course heavily edited, but was met with guffaws, snickers and all-around disbelief. Brock just shrugged, secure of the fact that what happened, happened. After a quick shower and change of clothes, except for James, they headed down to the Team Rocket encampment. As expected, they did find Jessie there. Ash and company left James and Jessie to talk, going a bit deeper in the woods. Meowth though was a bit reluctant to go, knowing full well what Jessie's temper could lead her to do. The 2 Rockets stood there for a while, their eyes cast downward. Then James began to speak. "Look, Jessie, I know that I never told you anything, that is, on how I feel about you, truly feel about you. And I know that it must have been quite a shock for you to find out how you did last night. And you were right, I am a bastard for not telling you, but you have to understand, I didn't want to jeopardize our friendship. But something was nagging me before. I always thought that if I ever got the courage to say how I feel, I felt you would feel the same way. And I think you do." James looked into her eyes, hoping beyond hope that she would say the 5 words he wanted to hear, right there, right then, "I love you too, James." Instead she said the 11 words he wished were never created, "I'm flattered. But I don't feel the same way about you." The male Rocket could literally feel his heart almost break in 2. He staggered back, almost like if he was in real physical pain. "But Jessie, I love you. And I know you love me too." He managed to get out in a high-pitched whine. No, I don't, James. So stop now, before you make more of an ass of yourself, she replied. Yes, you do. I just know it. Jessie was starting to lose her temper, but struggled with what little self-control she could muster. Look, if you felt so before, if you were so certain about it, why did you keep it a secret? I thought. Quote. James started to stammer out before being cut off by Jessie. You thought. You know what, James, idiots like you shouldn't think, especially say. And you either don't do it right or you think the wrong thing. Now shut the hell up, and let's just get on with our lives. Geez, you're thick, she practically screamed. James stepped back, his eyes welling up with tears. Then he uttered 4 words he never thought he would say to Jessie, you cold-hearted bitch. How James said it, Jessie almost didn't understand exactly what he said, but then it hit her. She reached her boiling point. She tried to slap him, and she almost did, her hand almost coming out of nowhere. Except, James intercepted her hand, and grabbed it, applying bone-crushing pressure. Jessie felt the pain race up and down her arm, totally shocked that James defended himself against her. She was even more surprised at what he said to her. How dare you? You! I don't believe this. I have tolerated more than I should have, and yet I continue to forgive you, for everything, from the hitting me upside my head, calling me names, taking advantage of my kindness. I even forgive you for the time when you almost killed me. All because were, hell, I don't know, best friends. The male rocket was furious at his partner, all the while unaware he was still squeezing her wrist. Jessie was slowly sinking to her knees, the pain in her arm so great. Please, James, you're hurting me. She whimpered, withholding a scream. It's about time. He almost spat out, but he released her arm, throwing it down. Jessie held her arm close to her. She looked up at him, hurt in her eyes. You bastard, you almost broke it. James looked down at her and tapped his ribs. You broke these, remember. Jessie turned her head away in shame. James continued. You know, up till 2 minutes ago, I could have shown you where the scars from the most intense pain in my life were. In fact, let me show you. With that, he peeled off his white outer shirt and lifted up his black undershirt, and turned around. His back was covered with white, puckered scars from Rumika's whip, and other unidentifiable markings. Jessie stifled a gasp and a sob for her friend. All she could think of is what she'd put him through and what her doppelganger had done. Now I finally have proof that the worst scars are the ones you don't see. He tapped his chest. Unless of course you got me. Just answer me this, Jessie. Why? That is the reason why I cannot return your love. I do love you, but I can't. She said, lowering her head to hide her tears. Jessie and James's camp, near Bass City. The 3 rockets sat there, on their sleeping bags, picking at their dinner. Jessie had changed into a sleeveless pink t-shirt that exposed her well-kept middle, and a pair of short, red satin boxers that exposed her long legs. Her long red hair was bereft of the insane amounts of hair gel it usually had and flowed around her face. James had on a white t-shirt that clung to him, showing of his muscular body, and a pair of loose black sweatpants. His turquoise-colored hair was combed backwards, revealing his handsome face. Meowth was there looking at his friends every once in a while. The cat Pokémon seemed almost as sad as the other 2 members of his team. Ever since that afternoon, Jessie and James were kind of happy, kind of sad. Oddly enough, they hadn't said a word, only giving each other fleeting glances. That's it. I can't stand it anymore. The both o' you talk. Meowth screamed at them, the frustration getting to him. The other 2 rockets almost jumped up in fright. They recovered quickly, though, and just looked at Meowth. Look, I have to go somewhere anyway. Just talk. With that, he ran into the forest. There's nothing to talk about, Jessie said. Well, I have to agree with Meowth. If there is something that keeps you from returning my love, you should tell me, James replied. He sat down next to her, staring ahead into the fire. Jessie looked at James, thinking, if I tell him, he might not love me anymore. But if I don't, he might not. All in all, I have nothing to lose, lots to gain. With that, she told him what happened, from the first meeting to the last. Her eyes stayed dry, but her partner's didn't. All that you went through for me. God, I am sorry. So sorry, he cried, burying his face in his hands. Jessie put her arms around him. No, James. It wasn't your fault. I chose to do what I did, she said. Even to her, the words sounded hollow. Wit, ferocity and speed that scared Jesse. James leapt up, and went through his duffel bag he kept his clothes in. He took out his Team Rocket shirt and looked at it with such hate and loathing. Jesse. He could have bet good money he was about to burn a hole in it. Then he spat on it, and threw it into the fire. Jesse stood up next to him, and watched as the shirt burned slowly. She looked at him, his gaze still fierce. His eyes still filled with tears. Then she looked back at the fire. They stood there for a while. Then Jesse looked at James again. About that time before. Thanks anyway, shish, he said as a lone tear went down her cheek. 2 years ago, Team Rocket HQ. So, I see that your team is having a vast improvement, huh? The boss asked, his face hidden in the shadows, as usual. Jesse and James were there. Their heads bowed. It's just luck, sir, Jesse said. It's just luck. So far you've managed to capture a whole nest of Beedrill, a pair of Nidorino and Nidorina and a Pikachu. Not the Pikachu you're supposed to get, but a Pikachu nonetheless. Not that bad for, just luck. For your work, you get a small bonus. With that, the boss turned around. You are dismissed, James. Tell me out, I said hello. Jesse, you stay behind. For your assignment. Thank you, very much sir. James said, a grin starting to form on his face. He threw a glance to Jesse. His red-headed partner's face betrayed no emotion. Using his good hand, he gave hers a little squeeze. She looked up at him and smiled, a faint smile. Then James turned around and left. Walking down the hall left James a bit breathless. The wounds he suffered from Jesse were healing, but not fast enough. His jaw was set back and healed, and so was his nose. Sometimes, though, he would suffer from intense vertigo. And it came at the most unexpected times. His arm was still in a sling, and he had a slight limp when he walked. Sometimes, even walking was a bit of a chore, his ribs still suffering. As he turned a corner, the aroma of food beckoned to him, and he limped as fast as he could to the cafeteria. Standing right there at the door though was Butch, smoking a cigarette. The green-haired Rocket looked at James with disdain. He drew himself up to his full height, a good 2 inches taller than James. Butch, like most of Team Rocket, wore the black versions that Jesse and James wore. It didn't officially mean anything. But it was a way that Rockets knew their status. Where do you think you're going, Bishojo? Butch asked, in that scratchy voice of his. Butch and his friends called James Bishojo, which meant pretty girl. It was their way of ragging on James for seeming so soft and sensitive. I don't have to tell you anything. James snapped, angrily. Butch took a step forward to James. Yes you do. Or else what? James took a forward, looking him right in the eye. I don't know how bad your keeper beat you, but she seems to have beat you one too many times in the head. You seem to be forgetting your role. Suppressing a chuckle, James replied, and you, friend, seem to be watching too much wrestling. Now if you excuse me, James started to step to the side, but Butch blocked his path. Bishojo. You talk too much trash. Keep it up, I'm going to have to put you out. With that he put out his cigarette on James' arm. His broken one. Then he ran away laughing like a hyena with glass in its throat. Asshole. James swore under his breath. He entered the cafeteria, his good mood felled. The cafeteria was almost the size of the auditorium. On both sides the serving booths where agents picked up a free meal. The food was decent, but barely so. The chefs didn't really care about the quality of the food, seeing as to how the major agents could eat. Afford better or had their own service. James walked over to one of the booths and ordered a dozen donuts and a large coffee. Since the cafeteria was almost empty, he had no trouble finding a seat. He silently munched on them, deciding what to do for the day. Suddenly, someone sat down next to him. Is this seat taken? No, hey, wait a minute. Cassidy. James said in recognition. Oh, hello, James. Cassidy said. Jesse's rival and former best friend, Cassidy was also Butch's partner. She was a striking blonde, her long hair styled behind her into a sort of 3 prongs, leaving short bangs to the front. She wore the black version of the Team Rocket uniform, as contrast to Jesse and James's. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be out making somebody else's life miserable? James asked disdainfully. James had nothing against Cassidy, but since she was Jesse's rival he wasn't too sure to act around her. Hey, look James, I've got nothing against you, capiche? I just wanted to get a little something to eat. And if you have a problem with me sitting here, well then just move, Cassidy replied. With that, she started eating her tofu burger. James was a little taken aback at what she said, and kept his mouth shut. He started to eat a donut, but then turned back to her. Sorry, he mumbled. Yeah, no prob, she replied. It's just that, what Jesse says about you, and the way you to get along. I just have to wonder what happened between you two, James continued. Well, that's what happened in the past. Hey, you going to finish off those donuts? Well you could have one, I guess. Thanks. Cassidy finished it off with a speed rivaled only by James. She picked up another one and began to eat it. So when's the baby coming? James said jokingly. Cassidy went pale, and stopped in mid-chew. She looked around to make sure no one heard what he said. Then she grabbed him by his throat and swung him around on the table. What the hell did you just say? Cassidy demanded angrily. Hey, I was just joking. Calm down. Damn, James sputtered out in surprise. She let go of James, and sat back down. What in the hell got into her? James thought, as he brushed of the front of his uniform, and readjusted his sling. He slowly got up, and grabbed the remainder of his donuts and coffee. Hey look, James, I'm sorry, Cassidy said fearfully. Don't worry, I won't tell Jesse, he said to her. That prompted a laugh from her. Huh, you think I'm afraid of her? That's funny. James felt himself get angry. Hey, now you wait there a minute. What's so funny about that? Cassidy raised her hands in mock surrender, a smile on her face. No, James, you misunderstand me. I figured you'd try to use whatever you had on me against me. Ames isn't exactly the smartest person around, and what he said next didn't prove the contrary. Wah. Cassidy smacked herself in the head. You mean you don't know? Know what? Cassidy got up and stood next to James. I forgot. You don't hang with him. Butch. Of course not. I hate that bastard's guts. James said, remembering all the crap Butch put him through. Then he remembered he was with his partner. Sorry. It's just that he's so damn, well, mean. Cassidy did something that surprised James. She looked kind of sad as she said, yeah, well, you're right. Then her eyes filled with tears. And she laid a hand on her stomach. Realization dawned on James. Oh man, when did it happen? He asked, leaning in close to Cassidy. She sighed and sat down. James sat down next to her. Cassidy looked over at him. Should I tell him? She thought, looking over at James. He was looking at her, honest concern on his face. Well, who's he going to tell that would actually believe him? With that, Cassidy told James how Butch had started making passes at her, and how she wasn't interested. She told him about times he would come back to their cabin, drunk, and threatened to rape and kill her. Then she told him about the time he did rape her. She also told him she was afraid she was pregnant with his child. By the time they were done talking, James got up and got some tissues for her. She accepted them gratefully. James had kept his mouth quiet the entire time, his face betraying no emotion. His eyes, though, did give him away. They were filled with rage. Don't you worry about a thing. I'll handle it, James said finally. Cassidy got a worried look on her face. She grabbed James's good arm. Oh, no you don't. I don't want you telling anyone. Not one soul. Don't you even tell Jesse about this. She hissed angrily. James turned his face away from her. She grabbed his chin and made sure that their eyes met. Promise me, this is between you and me. Fine, I promise, James said finally. Hesitantly. Cassidy sighed in relief. Near Giovanni's room, Jessie shut the door to Giovanni's room and sighed. Smoothing back her hair, she walked down the hallway. But then realized someone was following her. She turned the corner and waited for the person to pass by. As they did, Jessie tripped them and twisted their arm behind him. Hey, mercy. A scratchy voice said in agony. Jessie dropped his arm, and pushed him angrily to the ground. She folded her arms over her chest, and looked at him get up. Butch struggled to his feet, and turned and faced her, an evil grin on his lips. So what's up, Red? Butch asked, trying to use what he called charm, on her. Jessie scowled and started back along her way. Butch scowled himself, as he tried catching up with her. Hey, what's your hurry? Can't we just talk? Butch said, trying to soften his voice. About what? Jessie said curtly. You know about me, Butch drawled, trying to look innocent. Jessie turned to him, an amused expression on her face. Butch, are you hitting on me? She asked, a smile on her face. Well, yeah, he replied, unashamedly. Jessie rolled her eyes, and kept on walking. Whatever, she called behind over her shoulder. Butch started to get angry. He caught up next to her, and grabbed her arm. Hard. What the hell do you think you're doing? Jessie asked, her eyes flashing angrily. With you. Whatever the hell I want. Butch retorted. Jessie grabbed his wrist and applied bone-cracking pressure to it. He started to wail in agony and let go. Jessie didn't. Butch, I'm going to tell you something. Now listen up. What you are doing is how not to get the girl, especially when your voice sounds like nails on a chalkboard. B, you have a terminal case of bad breath. And C, you ain't all that, Jessie said, her voice barely containing her anger. She let go of his wrist and continued on her way. You have to go out with me. He shouted at her, cradling his sore wrist. Why? I just broke the only action you get, she said, as she turned around to look at him, hands square on her hips. No, because I know you're giving head to the boss. Jessie's expression didn't change. You are a sick son of a bitch, you know that. Keep to your delusions. Just leave me out of them. Maybe I should tell your little bitch about my delusions, Butch said in a sarcastic tone. Jessie walked up to him, all humor gone from her voice. You can say whatever you want about me, but just keep it between me and you, alright? She told him angrily. Oh, don't worry, I will. As long as I get some of the TLC the boss is getting. Oh, that's what you wanted, Jessie replied in a seductive whisper. She stepped closer to him, and placed a slender finger on his lips. Well, why didn't you say so? She said, getting closer and closer. Butch's mind was too busy on where they were going to reply. As he put his arms around her slender waist, she put her arms around his neck. Then she kneed him in the crotch. Butch screamed as his voice raised several notes. Jessie got out of his embrace and dusted herself off. I don't like scum, much less touch it. Consider yourself lucky, Jessie said as she went back along her way. Bitch, you'll pay, Butch stammered out as she walked off. By then he was on the floor clutching his privates. Yeah, well wait till my next paycheck, she shot back. Bitch's gonna pay, he said more to himself. 2 hours later. Hashtag might as well check up on Meowth and the rest. James thought as he got up from his bed. He was inside the dorm Jessie and Meowth shared in the headquarters. It was a 3-bedroom dormitory, small with only a kitchenette, 1 bathroom, and a tiny little living room other than the bedrooms. They rarely stayed there, though, because they were often on the road or in their cabin in the woods. As he left the floor, he went up a couple of floors to the Pokémon Center. Probably the most unique Pokémon Center in the world. It was bereft of one thing all the others had, a Nurse Jenny. As James got off the elevator, he almost back in. Butch and the rest of his crew were hanging around the entrance to the Pokémon Center. James breathed in deeply, and walked on out. Butch turned around as he heard the elevator doors open and shut. He turned back to his crew, and nodded. James started to come through, but was blocked by Butch's friends. Bishojo, it took you long enough to get here. Come on, we need to talk, Butch said heartily, as if they were long-lost friends and they needed some catching up. I don't have time for this. Just let me through, James replied, exasperated. Butch shook his head. Oh, no, we don't, bitch boy. We got some stuff to discuss. Namely your pimp. James was accustomed to their little names and didn't care much about what they said to, or about him. When it came to Jessie though, it was another matter. You leave her out of this. This is between me and you, James said quietly. Steel in his voice. Oh, my gosh, Butch said, feigning innocence and surprise, as he threw his hand up to his mouth. She never told you, did she? Ah, little Bishojo's pimp is being pimped. Isn't that precious? And she never even *URK. He tried to finish what he said, but James had leapt on him, his good hand on his throat, his bad hand pummeling his face a mask of rage. Don't you ever say another thing about Jesse," he shouted as he kept on beating him up. Butch's friends leapt to his aid and dragged him off, but James was still struggling, kicking and spitting like a wild animal. Butch got up, wiping the blood from his nose, mouth and other cuts on his face with his sleeve, a deadly grin on his cut lips. He reached into his pocket, and produced a switch knife. He flicked open the blade and held it menacingly. He ran the dull side of it to James' face. "You know, as soon as I'm done with you, your little pimp's gonna want a new sex thing. I'll be sure to apply. Of course she might be too busy with boss, or whoever else she opens her legs to." James saw red. Butch's words pushed him to the edge. In a show of superhuman strength, he wrenched free of all those people and tackled Butch to the ground. Jessie sighed as she got out of the elevator. Giovanni was getting tired of her. Jessie was feeling better. No more of that sick man touching her, making her, well, she wasn't going to let that get her down. She'd go visit Meowth, and find James. Tell him they could go out or something. She wanted to catch that new play. I wonder where James is, she thought. As the elevator doors opened, she got her answer. Lying on the ground were the unconscious, she hoped, bodies of the majority of Butch's crew. In the middle of all of this was James. The white portion of his uniform gone, revealing the black sleeveless shirt he wore underneath. It had a nasty gash down the middle, evidently by a knife. His pants were shredded in a few places, but still together. What James was doing shocked her all the more. He was battling the rest of Butch's crew, one guy and Butch himself, in hand-to-hand combat. One of them charged James, but James ran to meet to his charge, and lifted him up in a fireman's carry and dropped him hard on the ground. James kept on going, and jumped in the air. He launched a flying side kick that caught the other guy square in the temple. He went flying back, unconscious, or dead. Butch raised his knife, trying to keep the fear he felt from making him drop his knife and run. James had laid waste to his friends, about 10 of them, and didn't even look tired. What he looked was royally pissed. Butch never even knew he was capable of such wanton violence. He heard the rumors that James had the best grades during training, and he knew that before they started chasing after the Pikachu, his team was rising fast in terms of ranks. But he never knew why. James turned to him, his expression that of pure hate. "I told you not to say anything about Jesse. I warned you. Now you will pay," he said, his voice full of steel and rage. "Bah, back of man, I've got a knife," Butch said, fear getting into his voice. So, this guy's nuts. Butch thought, his concentration faltering. He futilely tried to slash at the enraged man, but James simply sidestepped. He grabbed his knife hand, and slammed it on his knee. Butch screamed, as bone cracked. The knife fell out of his numb fingers. James threw him down, like a piece of trash, and picked up the knife. He hefted it in his hands, noticing its nice feel, its weight, and how sharp it looked. A wicked grin spread amongst his face, the thought of what he was going to do. He turned around and faced Butch. Butch was trying to get up and run. Then he noticed James looking at him. Terror became evident on his features as he saw the knife in his hands. James smiled at him. He kept on smiling as he licked the blade, by the edge, looking like a sadistic, psychotic freak. James walked over to him and stepped on his broken arm, putting his full weight on it. Butch screamed again. James kicked him over until he was lying on his back. Then he knelt over him. "Before I continue, let's make this clear, this isn't just for Jesse. Don't forget Cassidy," James said, bending over, his lips near the other guy's ear. He pulled himself back up, and put the knife near Butch's forehead. Then he made an incision. "James, no," Jessie yelled, snapping back to her senses. "Jesse," James said in a bewildered voice, as if snapping back to his senses. He looked down at Butch, crying like a baby, whimpering. He looked at himself, realizing what he was doing. He dropped the knife in shame, and got up from off of Butch. He turned to Jesse, looking like he had no idea what was going on. "Did I do this?" he asked, waving his arm about the chaos around him. "Yeah, James, you did." Present. Jesse hugged him tighter, as the uniform became nothing but ashes. She let go of him and got hers. She threw it in the fire. "At least we don't have to worry about firewood tonight, huh?" she said jokingly. The next day, "What do you mean you're breaking up with me?" Brock wailed. Trust me, it's for the best, Nurse Joy replied. But after last night, and the night before, Brock said in desperation. Which was great, I can assure you, I don't want a long-distance relationship. I'm sorry. I'll stay. You won't be happy here. You know it. You're here. That's enough for me. Yeah, you'll say that now, but what about till the sex gets old? Your friends won't be here. You'll learn nothing. Trust me on this, Brock. Get over me. Brock sighed and hung his head low. I'll never forget you, he sighed. Who are you again? Joy said jokingly. They both chuckled sadly. They kissed one last time, savoring it, as if to commit it to memory. Then, regretfully, they ended it. Brock started to walk away but then turned back around. Nurse Joy gently pushed him away. Go, she mouthed. Brock put on a half-hearted grin and went to rejoin his friends outside. Predictably, Ash and Misty were busy making out by a tree. #Aw, look at them. So happy to be together. Hopefully I'll find somebody who'd actually stay. Brock thought wistfully. Ahem, he said loudly. They both looked up, both of them getting red in the face. They stood apart, fixing their clothes. Trying to think of something to say. Yeah, so thanks for checking, my breath, Misty. Ash said, trying to play it off. Anytime, Ash, Misty replied, really happy. Brock shook his head, holding back a laugh. So where do we go from here? He asked. Well, I say, Ash began, but was cut off by Jessie. Prepare for trouble, she called out. And make it double, her partner replied. They leapt out of the tree, oddly enough not in their uniforms. Meowth leapt out after them. Oh, come on guys. Can't you try to capture Pikachu some other time? Ash asked. Jessie, James and Meowth started to laugh at that. Well actually, we quit Team Rocket. We no longer do that whole, try to steal Pikachu with elaborate scheme then get blasted off resulting in major ouchies. T is so passé, Jessie said in a Valley Girl imitation, sounding like one of Misty's sisters. Yeah well, actually we're just wondering if we can travel with you guys. Seeing as to how we want to become Pokemon Masters, it would just make sense to travel with you guys, piped up James. Give us a second to discuss this, Ash replied. Then he, Misty, Brock, Pikachu, and Togepi got into a huddle. A minute and a couple of thunderbolts later, a fried Ash stepped forward. Yeah, you can join, he said as he fell down, unconscious. A return to simpler times, hallelujah. Last chapter. More insight on Jessie and James's history. After seeing how the rest of Team Rocket treats Jessie and James, and how far James would go to protect Jessie's honor and reputation. Also, Bridge. Ox Nurse Joy breaks up with him, There is also the small matter of Jessie and James joining Ash and company. Who knows how this is going to change things, especially since they are headed to Pallet. And Ash's mother doesn't know about him and Misty. Hey, is anybody in the river? Ash asked. It was early in the morning in the woods. The group, Ash, Misty, Brock, Jessie, James, Meowth, Pikachu and Togepi had made camp there last night and was busy getting ready for the day. I don't think so, Brock answered, as he started breakfast up. Ash nodded and got out his towel, toothbrush, and a bar of soap. Making sure not to wake up Misty, who was asleep nearby. Whistling a tune, he walked through the bushes to the freshwater river. Making sure no one was near, he stripped down to his undies and waded into the river. There, he took off his underwear, and started to bathe. Meanwhile, back at camp, James had finally awoken. Much to his dismay, Jessie was not near him as she usually was. Wiping the sleep from his eyes, he looked around. Spotting Brock breaking some eggs into a bowl, he asked, Hey, where's Jessie? I'm not too sure, she woke up earlier and said she was going to the river, Brock started. But stopped himself. He thought, fear at his mistake rising up in amusement at what might happen. Back at the river, Ash was busy brushing his teeth and started looking around. He spun around in a complete circle taking in the sights. The mountains in the far distance, Ash thought looking at them. A Goldeen jumping out of the water a few feet away, the lush green forest. A sleeping Jessie doing a back float, naked, a Meryl swimming downstream, he stopped himself cold. He turned around, a sweat drop starting to form. Floating lazily with the river was Jessie. Naked as the day she was born. Jessie woke up, seeing a naked Ash near her, blue in the face, his toothbrush still hanging out of his mouth. "Well, the least you could do is turn around, twerp," she said matter-of-factly. Ash stood frozen to the spot. Then his eyes rolled back into his head and he fainted. As soon as he hit the water, he instantly revived, and screamed, "MWAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA shook her head and got up, suppressing a chuckle. Hashtag somebody should have taught the brat the birds and the bees ages ago. He got up to put on her clothes that were near the riverbed. Ash in the meantime had lost all sense and was running around like a madman, screaming like a banshee, his legs a round blur, his arms flung up. He kept on running, until he slammed into a tree, and was knocked out, his eyes gone swirly. Jessie, now dressed in khaki shorts and a sleeveless shirt, bent over Ash and slapped him awake. Ash sputtered awake. "Hey, Ash, are you happy to see me?" Jessie asked. Why do you ask that, Jessie?" Ash replied, not aware he was still naked. "'Cause you don't have anything in your pockets, and your friend sure seems to be." Jessie replied, pointing towards his lower body. Ash looked down to where she was pointing to, and quickly got up, red in the face, to where his towel was. Jessie laughed and went back to camp. By then Brock had finished making breakfast and handed her a plate of scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast. "Hey, what was that commotion going on down there?" Brock asked. "Oh, nothing. Ash just finally saw perfection," Jessie answered, a smile on her face. "Whatever," Brock answered, shrugging. "I figured he just saw you naked or something." Jessie's eyes narrowed, and a vein popped up on her forehead. "What did you say, Brock?" she asked, her voice seething with rage. Nothing," Brock said, remembering her prowess with a paper fan. He raised his arms in mock surrender, turned face and ran. Ash meanwhile had put on his clothes, his face still red. As he trudged back up to camp, a feeling of guilt and shame swept over him. Now how in the world am I going to explain this to Misty? To Jessie? To James? Now it looks like I'm some sort of pervert. Great going catch 'em. He thought, kicking himself mentally. He wondered how in the world he was going to go back to camp without anyone seeing him, when he heard, "Hey, Ash." Ash turned around to see Brock standing there, a grin on his face. Crap, he must have heard about it. Ash fumed. "So how was your bath?" Brock asked, a goofy smile on his face. "Shut up. It was an accident," Ash said, blushing again. "So did you like what you saw?" "Shut up. Come on buddy. I'm just playing," Brock said, putting a hand on his shoulder. Ash just shrugged it off, and turned around. Brock frowned, worried he might have hurt his friend somehow. "Hey, Ash, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make fun," he said softly. "No, it isn't you. It's what you asked." Brock cocked an eyebrow, a smile again appearing on his face. "Oh, you mean the second question," he said, the grin getting larger. Ash turned around again, an ashamed expression on his face. "Yeah, the funny thing is I did. Well, Jessie isn't ugly and fat. She is kinda hot," Brock said thoughtfully. "Well, it'd sure make me feel better if she was ugly and fat. Dude, trust me, it would not make things easier." Ash smiled at that. "It's just that, I've had this bit of a crush on her. You know that." With that he sighed and sat on the ground. Brock sat down next to his friend, still smiling, remembering when Ash was 13, his voice starting to crack. It was funny at first, Ash telling him about how mixed up inside he felt about Misty. Then it was full out hilarious when Ash said he had a crush on Jessie. That took the cake. Ash looked out at the water, staring into space. He too remembered those 2 years of his hormones raging like wild bulls. "I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love Misty, and I find her attractive and everything. But I mean I also find Jessie attractive. Is that wrong?" Ash asked. Brock responded, "Look at me. I find everyone attractive. There's no shame in that. But the big question is, did you stand there gawking?" Ash scratched his head. No." Brock smacked him upside his head, looking a bit peeved. "Dumbass. Ow. What was that for?" Ash whined, rubbing his head. "You should have enjoyed the view." Later that day, "I say we go left. It's a lot faster to the next town that way," James said, holding a map. "No way. If we go to the left, we'd be neck deep in swamp." Brock replied, looking over his shoulder. And Meowth says we turn around. We took a wrong turn a couple of miles back. Meowth piped up, leaping on top of James's head. Hey, ya damn cat, I can't see. James whined. They were following a dusty old path near the ocean, providing a breathtaking view of the sea below. They were still near the forest, as the trees loomed close to them. The path though was wide enough for them to keep inappreciable from the edge of the road, for there were no guardrails. The group had left camp hours ago and was traveling under the hot, sweltering midday sun. James, Meowth, and Brock were in the front, while Jessie talked to Misty and played with Togepi in the middle. While Ash and Pikachu brought up the rear. Ash was keeping his distance from the rest of the group, still embarrassed from that morning. He barely said a word to Misty, or anybody for that matter, and was the last one to leave the camp. Pikachu had fallen asleep on Ash's shoulder ages ago, so Ash had no one to talk to. Even if it were otherwise, Pikachu still wouldn't have been able to help in his situation. As Brock, James and Meowth were arguing, they spotted 5 people ahead of them. Aha, locals. They'll tell us, James said triumphantly, as he threw Meowth off of his head. All right, Brock said in agreement. And those girls look pretty hot, he stammered out as he saw the strangers in closer detail. There were 3 girls and 2 guys, just hanging around at the side of the road, talking. James rushed ahead to greet them and warn them about Brock. Hello there. Do you people live near here? James asked, flashing a dazzling grin. One of the girls stepped forward. She was around 5 feet 6'20" and had a slim figure. She had short, green hair and brown eyes. She was dressed in a pair of short shorts, and a white t-shirt. Yeah, we live around here. What can we do for you? She asked. Well, my friends and I, James said waving his arm, are passing through and we just wanted to know the quickest route to the next town. The girl stuck her hands into her pockets. Well, you could go left. Quickest way there, she started. See, James said smugly turning to give a look at Brock. But you'll end up in the swamps. See, Brock replied, folding his arms and a smug grin on his face. The girl just rolled her eyes at the exchange. Anyway, me and my friends could take you there. We don't have much to do anyway. She went back with her friends, and after a heated discussion, they followed her back to James. My name's Kim. How do you do? She said, sticking her hand out to James. And my name's Brock. How do you do, miss? Brock replied, taking Kim's hand, in full girl mode. Kim grabbed back her hand. Hello, Brock. Her friends came nearby. This is Katrina, she said pointing at a girl about 2 inches shorter than she was, dressed something like Misty. With her hair put up like Misty's when her hair was shorter, and she was dressed like Misty, the short shorts, yellow sleeveless shirt that exposed her stomach, and red suspenders. Hiya, she said in greeting. This is Jason, Kim continued, pointing at a solidly built youth. He was tall, almost 7 feet, with a bulky, muscular build. He had black, spiky hair and dull brown eyes. He was dressed in a red t-shirt and blue jeans, and stood barefoot. He nodded. Over here is Billy, she introduced. Billy was of average height, kind of thin and geeky looking, a pair of large glasses on his face that almost hiding his inquisitive eyes. His brown hair was slicked back, wet. He wore a blue top and jean cut-offs, sandals completing the ensemble. And lastly, Ashley, Kim finished. Ashley had a plain face, but a very voluptuous figure, which she did nothing to hide in her yellow tube top, and black short skirt. Her long black hair was combed behind her, held in place by a yellow beret. The rest of the group had arrived too, and they made their pleasantries, except Ash, who was still behind. Misty and Katrina were exchanging the evil eye, the other accusing the other with their eyes of being copycats. Nothing was said, though. Misty tore her eyes from the little battle she was having with Katrina, and looked behind her for Ash. Ash, come on, we don't have all day. She yelled to him, breaking him from his little trance. Ash looked up and started to run towards them. Katrina's eyes widened a little. Did you just say Ash? As in Ash Ketchum? Yeah, is something the matter? Misty asked a bit bewildered. Katrina and Ashley looked at each other, their eyes widening, huge grins forming on their faces, their cheeks growing red. Then they busted out. Oh my god. It's really him, it's really him. All those in Ash's group took a step back, a sweat drop beginning to form. Hey everybody. What's up? Ash said as he got up to the group. Katrina and Ashley looked at him. And then looked at each other. Timidly, Katrina took a step towards Ash. Are you, Ash Ketchum? She asked, the excitement and awe in her voice apparent. Yes. I am Ash Ketchum, from the town of Pallet. Pokemon Master. Ash replied proudly. Katrina leapt at him and started kissing him madly. Ashley ran up, trying to pull her off. Pikachu was thrown off of Ash in the process. The two ladies started to fight over a stunned Ash. Pikachu put a stop to it by letting loose a thunderbolt. P-K-A-C-C-C-C-C-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H- died. Thankfully for Ash, Katrina and Ashley were knocked silly by the blast, while he was relatively unaffected. Years and years of Pikachu doing that to him had made him a bit less susceptible to an attack like that. Could someone please tell me what's going on? Ash asked, bewildered as usual. Oh, so you're the great Ash Ketchum, huh? Jason asked, taking a step towards him. If I answer yes, do you promise not to kiss me? Ash asked, backing up. The only thing of mine that's going to kiss you is my fist. Oh, thank you, Ash said, relieved. Then Jason swung a big, meaty fist. Ash barely sidestepped it. Hey, what's your problem? Ash asked, trying to calm him down. Yeah, he stammered. Twerp, brat, pick one, Jesse called out. In the meantime, the two groups went to hold back their respective members. After a minute or two of separation, they tried to talk things out. Okay, so let me get this straight, Jesse began. You two are in love with Ash, right? She asked, pointing to Katrina and Ashley. Right, they acknowledged, still making goo-goo eyes at Ash. Ash was busy trying to ignore them. And you hate Ash, right? She asked, pointing at Jason. Yeah, and I can't wait to kick his ass. Jason shouted at Ash. The Pokemon Master just ignored him too. And yet, you guys have never met. Jesse continued. Yeah, Jason spoke up. Jesse produced a sweat drop. She went back over to the group. Okay, what we have here is a case of fanitis. You see, when Ash became Pokemon Master, he got a bit of a fan following. As fan followings go, those three people are showing extreme cases of it. Katrina and Ashley are suffering from the whole celebrity crush thing that many teenage girls seem to suffer from when it came to celebrities. And probably, Jason is exhibiting the whole, I am going to kill you cause the girl I like is in love with you, thing, Jesse informed the gang. Oh, they said collectively. So, what am I supposed to do? Ash piped up. For the girls, run like hell. Oh, and one other thing. Do not, I repeat, do not, tell them that you and Misty are together, or else they will plot her demise. Just say you're not interested and keep running. Pikachu could take care of the rest. What about the guy? Tell him that you two have never met and you have no interest in the apple of high eye. That's all. Gee, thanks Jesse. Ash said gratefully. No prob, brat. Personally though, I would have some fun with those three, Jesse said wistfully. But, Jesse, we can't do that. We're the good guys. James whined. Well, still, she pouted. Ash stepped forward, and turned his cap backwards. I'm going to have to make sure they know the deal. I can't have my friends being set back for some crush on me. I'll talk to them. Jesse sat down. I wouldn't recommend it. Tough, he replied as he went over to the other side of the road and started up with them. The rest of Ash's group sat down next to Jesse, and watched Ash talk to them. They couldn't make out a word they were saying, but the body language was expressive enough. As Ash walked over, the two smitten girls almost jumped on him, but were barely held back by the members of their group. Ash warily walked closer. He exchanged some words, his hands raised up in mock surrender. As he continued, the girls calmed down a bit. Then as Ash continued, he made a sweeping gesture with his hand and pointed at the group. What do you think he's saying? James whispered to Brock. I don't know, but I betcha, he's going to make a fool of himself. Suddenly, Katrina and Ashley glared daggers at the two girls in Ash's group. Oh, geez, he told them something. Jesse whispered furiously at Misty. You mean? Yup, I betcha he said, it's not you, it's me and my heart belongs to someone else, and a whole bunch of other crap. Now they think it's one of us. As Ash continued, he seemingly did not notice the poison stares the girls were giving to them. Then Jason's eyes narrowed, and a vein appeared on his head. He started shouting something at Ash and started shaking his fist at Ash. Ash cowled back a bit, then seemingly regained his confidence. He shouted back at him and reached for a Pokeball. Jason reached for one too, and they started a battle. So, how long do you think it's going to take for Ash to kick that guy's ass? Meowth whispered to James. $5 says that it's going to turn into a long-fought battle and Pikachu delivers the final blow. You're on. I say th. And Ash takes him out with just one Pokemon. In the meantime, Ash and Jason were at it. 3-on-3 battle. No callbacks. No items. No time limit, and no outside interference, Jason called out. Already selecting a Pokemon from his belt. Wouldn't have it any other way, Ash shot back. Machamp, go. Bulbasaur, I choose you. The two trainers threw out their Pokeballs at the same time. They landed in the middle of the road and spilled out their contents in a flash of red light. Bulbasaur and Machamp sized each other up, before their trainers called out their attacks. Machamp, low kick, now, Jason shouted. Bulbasaur, evade and leech seed, Ash cried out. Machamp kicked at the plant type, but it leapt away. A seed erupted from its back and landed on the Machamp. Machamp, seismic toss. Before it sucks away at your energy. Use your Vine Whip to keep him away, and start leeching. Bulba. Gotcha, Ash. Bulbasaur said as he started to furiously whip Machamp with his vines. Machamp though was trying to block them with his four forearms, and was pressing through. Then the seed took root and covered him in bush. Then they started to sap away his energy. Machamp was instantly weakened, and fell to its knees. Machamp, return. Jason cried out angrily, as he used the Pokeball to get Machamp out of the thick vegetation that was gulping away at his energy. 1-0, Ash said happily, a confident smirk settling on his face. Not for long, Pidgeot, go. The bird Pokemon flew out of its confines and flew straight into the air, gaining altitude. Pidgeot, it screamed. Pidgeot, wing attack, Jason yelled. Bulbasaur, start to power up for Solar Beam. Ash yelled. Back on the sidelines, Jessie was taking notes on the battle. Jessie, what are you doing? Misty whispered at her. I'm walking to the bloody store to get a candy pop. What the hell do you think I'm doing? Jessie snapped angrily at Misty, furious her train of thought was interrupted. Well, if you're going to the store, the least you could do is offer to buy something for the rest of us, Misty huffed. Jessie's sweat dropped, and to her credit, kept her mouth shut. Back at the battle, Bulbasaur and the Pidgeot ended up in a double knockout, Pidgeot managing to land a few successful wing attacks, before Bulbasaur fired off his solar beam. Alright, now things are looking interesting, Ash said to himself. His adrenaline pumping. Alright, Primeape, go. Jason called out, an evil grin forming on his lips. Ash took a step back as his group made an audible gasp themselves. Everyone there remembered Ash's Primeape, and its awful temper. In fact, just the mention of that name to them brought back the memory of bruises and pain. Jason folded his arms. What did T think I knew about that little escapade with that Primeape? How did you? Ash stammered out. That's the thing about all those interviews you did. You find out about their fears and dreams. I picked up on one of your fears. Now pick the Pokemon that's going to be beat to a bloody pulp. Ash gritted his teeth, and resisted the urge to beat him into a bloody pulp. As it was he looked at Pikachu. You feel like thunder shocking those words down that guy's throat? Ash asked him. Pika. Yup. Pikachu replied, electricity already sparking from his cheeks. Then, Pikachu. I choose you. Ash cried out. Pikachu jumped off of his trainer's shoulders and went into the middle of the road, facing the Primeape. Ha! I always wanted to battle the famous rat. Primeape. Fury swipes. Jason yelled out. Hey, that's my attack. Meowth screamed indignantly from the sidelines. His cries were ignored as the battle started. Pikachu, use agility. Keep ahead of that Primeape. Pre-IMMMMEEEEAAAPPPPE. The Primeape shouted and started to swipe at Pikachu. Pikachu barely evaded, and jumped high into the air. He came back down and started to run at lightning speed around the Primeape. That's it, Pikachu. Now, let's try that new attack we've been working on. Pika. Alright. Pikachu panted out. The Primeape tried to kick at Pikachu, but Pikachu was going too fast. Primi. Use focus energy and rage. Jason yelled to his struggling Pokemon. PP Priam M me. It screamed, and then went silent and closed its eyes. A flash of light erupted as it started to focus. Then it opened its eyes again. Now they were blood red. Meanwhile, electricity was sparing up from the electric mouse, in effect, creating a circle of energy. The Primeape tried to attack, but was instead shocked. It yelled in pain, but staggered back. Pikachu started to run in a tighter circle, making the electricity get closer to the trapped Pokémon within. The electricity was making its whitish fur stand on end. As it got closer and closer. Do you give up, Jason? Ash asked, hoping that he said yes. No, never. Jason cried out, his eyes locked on the battle. Ash sighed. He hoped it wouldn't come to this. Pikachu, end game. Pikachu span around, faster than before, getting closer and closer, until the Primeape had no more room to move. The column of electricity was at least 10 feet tall now. Then Pikachu jumped up and released a massive thunder shock. The column collapsed inwards, shocking horribly whoever was inside. The Primeape's screams were horrible as 10,000 volts of electricity crashed on him. Primeape, Jason whispered, as he started towards the steaming crater where the attack had taken place. Ash ran towards it too, as Pikachu collapsed on the spot. Well, you owe me $5. James said to Meowth, matter-of-factly. Ash burst into a full sprint and picked up Pikachu. Pikachu stirred and looked up at him. Ow, he said simply before he passed out again. Cradling Pikachu in his arms, Ash went down into the center of the crater. The smell of ozone and burnt hair and flesh pervaded the area. The Primeape was unconscious, but still breathing, its white fur gone, leaving it looking like a hairless chicken. A weird mutant hairless chicken. Jason was there already, and picking it up. Ash took off his bag and took out a hyper potion. Here, this might help, Ash offered. Jason knocked it out of his hand and took out one of his own. He treated it and returned it to its Pokeball. Then he looked up at Ash, hate filling his gaze. Well, that was a good match. Ash said, sticking out his hand, unmindful of the rage-filled stare. Jason stood up his full height, a few inches taller than Ash. You, get out of my sight before I beat you to a pulp, he said in a low voice. Filled with anger. Ash stepped back, anger welling up at him. Ash wasn't one to fight, but he would if he needed to. Now, wait a minute. What's your problem? We never met before, and you already had a giant chip on your shoulder against me. And now I beat you in a fair Pokemon battle, you get angry over a defeat. Ash hissed, barely keeping his voice to a decent level. I said, get out of my sight, you no good, pathetic Pokemon trainer. You're lucky my Primeape didn't kill that rat of yours, Jason said, and he shoved Ash hard. He fell down on his back, still holding Pikachu. He warily got back up to his feet. He climbed up a bit and put Pikachu to rest on the edge of the crater, which was almost 5 feet deep. Ash placed his backpack and his red jacket there too. Then he leapt back in and tackled Jason. Meanwhile, back topside, both groups had seen Ash put his stuff up there, and ran to the crater. Jason and Ash were at it, punching and kicking each other. Should we leave them there to duke it out? Jessie asked, her notepad and pencil tucked away. Already Brock, Misty, Ashley, Katrina, Billy and Kim leapt inside the hole and started to break the fight up. Both were looking the worse for wear. Ash sported a slit lip and a bloody nose, while Jason was nursing a sore jaw, a black eye, and bruises on both sides of his face. Brock and Misty separated a kicking Wild Ash from Ash, as Kim held back Jason. Katrina and Ashley pretended to hold Ash back, but were busy trying to touch him. I made you bleed, boy. Jason yelled at him. If you gave me another minute, I would have made you bleed. Ash shot back. Then I would make you cry. But then again, you did that, when my Pikachu kicked your Primeape's ass. Low blow. Jason tore free of Kim and Billy. Seething in blind rage. Ash also managed to break free and met him in his rush. Jason threw a vicious haymaker, but Ash blocked it with his forearm, and threw a stiff uppercut at his jaw. Jason stumbled back and Ash followed up with a hard knee to his kidney. As Jason doubled over, he kneed him in the face, Jason's nose pulping under the impact. See, what did I tell ya? Ash grinned, gleefully. Jason fell on his knees, but threw a hard left jab at Ash's gut, knocking the wind out of him. Then he grabbed him by his spiky hair and threw his face in the dirt. Ash managed to get his head back up. But the other boy kicked him savagely in the ribs, actually making Ash fly a few feet. The others again went and held Jason and Ash back, this time Brock went over to help Kim and Billy restrain with Jason. What did I tell you? Made you bleed, next I'll make you apologize for being such a bad trainer. Ash screamed at him, almost breaking free from the three girls holding him back. Shut the hell up. The both of you. Brock yelled. Jesse, James and Meowth were busy watching the fight, eating a large bag of popcorn, their legs dangling over the crater's edge. Now you owe me another $5, James said to Meowth, his mouth full of popcorn. Hold your breath for it, Meowth sneered, taking the bag from Jesse. If you don't pay him the money, you'll be meeting the business end of my paper fan, Jesse said sweetly. Damn lovebirds, Meowth grumbled, forking over the money. 2 hours later, in the town's Pokemon Center. Ow, that stings. Ash whined as Misty dabbed a cut on his face with iodine. Serves you right, Ash Ketchum. Misty retorted, as she wiped at the cut harder. Ash hissed in pain and shot her a venomous glare. Misty returned it, but they said nothing. Misty continued to use the iodine on his other cuts on his face. The group was in the Pokemon Center. It wasn't very large, but it did the job. In the front was the desk where the Nurse Joy would pick up the sick and injured Pokemon. There was a large restroom, where visitors could sit and relax in the couches and the lunch tables. In the far back, rooms were held for trainers resting the night. The group was in the bedroom. Misty was helping a reluctant Ash, James and Jesse were taking a nap, while Meowth and Brock were playing the Pokemon trading card game. All their Pokemon were getting treated by the Nurse Joy and her assistant Chanseys. Misty put on a few bandages on Ash's face and sighed. That wasn't the smartest thing you did back there, Ash, she said to him quietly. Ash lowered his head. Yeah, I know, but still. What he said, and when he pushed me, it was just too much. Well, I guess getting your butt kicked did wonders for your head, Misty grinned devilishly. Ash looked up, getting defensive. What do you mean getting my butt kicked? I was doing the butt kicking. He yelled. Sure, tell that to this. Misty yelled back, pressing the iodine-soaked cloth on a large cut on his cheek. Ash hissed in pain. Ow. Hey, that stuff stings something fierce. Why'd you do that for? Well, would this make it feel better? M.I. Sty whispered and kissed him on his lips. Ash smiled a bit at that. Well, Ash said thoughtfully, breaking the kiss, we might need a little bit more treatment. Just to be safe. So they resumed it, but then thoughts of that morning flashed through his head, and he broke away suddenly. What is it, Ash? Misty asked a bit worriedly. Nothing, it's just that. My head is starting to hurt, that's all, Ash stammered. Lying through his teeth. Oh, well you just lie down, and sleep for a bit. We could finish later, Misty said and leaned in once more. Please, don't. Bad enough it's Jesse and James but you too. Meowth. Meowth snickered from across the room, ruining the moment. Shut up. Misty screamed at him. Unbeknownst to her, Ash sighed a bit in relief, blushing furiously. Team Rocket HQ. Giovanni sat in the darkness, by himself, alone with his thoughts. The unrivaled ruler of Team Rocket was in his office, the one in his gym at Viridian. Long since repaired from the damage that Rouge Pokémon, Mewtwo, had wrought on it, it was still closed to the public. Giovanni looked at his watch impatiently. Hashtag the little bitch is taking her good sweet time to get here, Giovanni thought angrily. A knock came on the solid mahogany door. Come in, Giovanni said. A minor lackey came in and bowed to him. The guest is here, sir. It's about time. Bring her in. The lackey bowed again, and was out of Giovanni's sight for a minute. Then he returned, the guest in tow. Good afternoon, Giovanni. Sorry, but I like to be fashionably late. It's only proper for a lady, guest said in her characteristic southern accent. Giovanni, despite his annoyance, smirked. The Pokemon Center, later that night. Jessie woke up with a start. She looked around her, surprised James wasn't there. She smoothed back her long deep red hair, and straightened up her clothes. As she got off the bed, she noticed a note. She picked it up and read it. Dear Jessie, sorry to leave you here by yourself. But the others and I decided to go out and check out the town, and I couldn't bother to wake you. Did I mention just how damn gorgeous you look asleep? Well, you do. We'll be gone for a bit. But I'll bring back something for you. Love, James. Well, thank you, James. Just leave me here all alone. Jesse started off, but heard a noise in the next bed. There was Ash, asleep and making incoherent noises. #him, should I? Nah, okay, yeah. Jessie thought devilishly to herself. She ran to the bathroom and filled up a large cup full of ice water. Then she ran back and threw its contents full force in Ash's face. Ash woke up with a start, spluttering and surprised. What in the hell? He swore out loud, trying to figure out what just happened. Then he noticed Jesse standing over him, smiling innocently. Jesse. What just happened? Ash asked, utterly and totally confused. Sometimes, Ash could be so dense. Oh, I don't know, a water cloud appeared over your head and soaked you. Jesse suggested, still grinning from ear to ear. Wow. Ash said, well, why didn't you take a picture or something? We could get rich and famous for finding something like that. Jesse started to laugh at what he said. Then Ash saw the cup behind her, and frowned. That wasn't very funny, Ash said, trying to cover up his embarrassment. Yes, it was. Jesse exploded, into a fit of hysterical laughter. Ash pouted and got out of bed, to find a towel. He took his towel out of his backpack and dried his face and hair. Well, what are you doing here anyway? Did you stay just to throw water in my face? Ash asked her finally. Yup, Jesse almost said proudly. Ash shook his head and sat back down on his bed. Well, you could do whatever you want. I'm going to try to get some sleep. Oh, come on, twerp. Live a little. We could do something. Jesse whined, not really wanting to be by herself. Like what? Ash asked, backing slightly up, the incident that morning running through his head. Then he remembered how relaxed Jesse had been. Could it be she wanted to? Oh, don't get the wrong idea, twerp, nothing like that, Jesse said, smirking and folding her arms. Well, I don't have to worry about that, Ash thought in relief. Alright, what do you want to do? Ash asked. Well, we could play the TCG, or we could listen to some CDs I have. She said. Well, Ash started, trying to decide. Or we could have wild, raucous sex. Mwah! Ash shouted in surprise, backing up. Jesse started to laugh at Ash's expression. Man, you are too easy. Not funny. Man, that's not funny. Oz stammered out, blushing even fiercer than before. Jesse sat down next to him, and wiped away a tear. Ash still backed up hesitantly. Alright, Ash, since you put me in such a great mood. Tell me what's wrong. I promise not to make fun of you. Ash looked at her, and could actually hear something like sincerity in her voice. His instincts told him to trust her, maybe this one time. Ash took in a deep breath. Alright, but this stays between you and me, okay? You got it. Okay, so like since I was 13, I had this bit of a crush on you. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Misty with all my heart and soul, but you know, I'm just kind of attracted to you. And I thought I no longer felt that crush on you anymore, but this morning, and what happened, I feel kind of ashamed, and all. And I don't know what to do, Ash blurted out rapidly. Whoa, Jesse said, a bit taken aback. Then she took a look at Ash. The poor guy was really broken up about it, sincerity and sadness oozing out of him. Then she took another look at him, not as her enemy, not as her friend, but as a guy. And as far as guys went, Ash wasn't too bad. But her heart belonged to James, and that was that. No question in her mind. But she knew how to help him. Alright, Ash, I'm going to do something, okay, but you are just going to have to trust me, Jesse said, looking into his eyes. Ash nodded his head, his golden brown eyes, meeting her clear blue ones. Jesse leaned in and kissed him full on the lips. Ash was taken aback, but timidly returned it. Then he broke away. Well, how was it? Jesse asked him anxiously. Ash's mind was reeling. It was a good kiss, a really good kiss, but something wasn't right, like it just wasn't right. It was a good kiss, but, Jesse urged him on. It wasn't Misty. I like Misty's kisses a whole lot better. Jesse sat back up. Anyway, twerp, it's okay to be attracted to other folks. Frankly, I'm not surprised you would be attracted to me. Seeing as to how I'm perfection, and Misty's just a runt, Jesse said calmly, winking at Ash. This time her joke didn't get over Ash's head and he laughed a little. But anyway, you love her, and not me. That's plain and simple. So could you please choose something for us to do, before my good mood is ruined? We play the TCG game. And you're wrong on one thing. I do love you, Jessie, but as my friend. Ash said sincerely, looking her in the eyes. Shut up and get the cards, Jessie said, flashing Ash a teary grin. Hey there, all you readers. Well, to keep things short, Ash and company arrive in Pallet Town. Which, you already know. Well, then, enough talk, onto the story. Mom, Ash Ketchum cried out, running towards her, a huge smile on his face. Ash, Delia Ketchum said in equal enthusiasm. A grin larger than the one on her son's face plastered on hers, and hugged her son. Ash and his friends had just arrived in the small village of Pallet Town, specifically at Ash's house for a little rest and relaxation. The group of course was Misty, Brock, Jessie, James, Meowth, Pikachu and Togepi. Oh, Ash, I've missed you so much. Mrs. Ketchum continued, still hugging Ash. Mom, you're embarrassing me in front of my friends, Ash said jokingly, realizing the company behind him. She let go of him and held him out in front of her. He now stood a few inches taller than her. Mrs. Ketchum was a beautiful woman barely in her 40s but looked 10 years younger. She had dark brown hair, and blue eyes. She was dressed in a simple blue dress, with a matching shawl around her shoulders. Mom, I want you to meet Jessie, James and Meowth, Ash said pointing at them at each of them, respectively. You already know Misty and Brock. How are you, ma'am? Jessie said, nodding her head in acknowledgement. Good afternoon, Mrs. Ketchum, James also said, holding out a rose for her, his most dazzling smile on his girlishly handsome face. Ash's mom accepted it with a smile on her face. And a slight blush appeared on her cheeks. Hello, Meowth said, bowing slightly. Mrs. Ketchum stood back in surprise. A talking Meowth. Then that means, she said, clutching at her purse a little tighter. No. They aren't Team Rocket anymore. They quit, Ash said quickly. Well, Mrs. Ketchum frowned, then smiled again. If Ash trusts you, I trust you. The former Rockets all smiled. Happy to be accepted. Well, come in all of you. Mrs. Ketchum beckoned for them to go inside the house. As Brock and Misty passed by, she hugged them in greeting. Ash's home was a cozy little 2-story house. It had a fairly large living room with a 32-inch TV, a sofa, a love seat, a rocking chair and a Las-Y boy. Next to the living room was the kitchen. It was equipped with the basics like a large refrigerator, stove, microwave and such. Adjoining the living room was the dining room, and the stairs that led to the upstairs bedrooms. Okay, guys, you will have to decide the sleeping arrangements between yourselves. I was on my way out for the evening, so make sure nothing happens. Mrs. Ketchum said cheerily. Big date, huh, Mom? Ash asked, nudging her gently. Mrs. Ketchum blushed. Yup, she giggled. Ash cracked a huge grin. All right, Mom, have fun. Ash's mom nodded her head, and headed for the door. Don't stay up for me, okay? She said, as she left. Ash started to laugh at that. Bye, guys, she called back as she left. Ash wandered back into the living room. Wow, my mom's on a date. It's about time. This got the attention of Jessie, Misty, Meowth, and Pikachu, who were in the living room watching the TV. What do you mean, it's about time, Ash? Misty asked him. Ash sat down in the lazy boy and pushed out the leg rest. Well, it's just been a long time. You know, ever since my father left, my mother hasn't had much of a romantic life. She should find someone to be happy with, that's all. Well, that's just plain sweet of you, twerp, Jessie replied. Now pipe down. Zoe is about to proclaim her undying love to Lawson. But if you know what's going to happen, why are you asking me to pipe down? Ash asked, bewildered. 'Cause you don't want to get hurt. The two ladies cried out, bashing his head down with a mallet and a paper fan. Point taken, Ash mumbled, trying to rid himself of the stars he was seeing. He shook it off, and managed to stumble his way to the kitchen. Brock and James were there already, Brock fixing up dinner and James eating a donut. Oh, hey Ash, Brock said, noticing him. He had on his frilly pink apron he usually wore while cleaning and cooking. Sup, Brock, James, Ash said. He went to the kitchen and took out a can of soda and a bottle of ketchup. He walked back to TH's living room and gave the bottle of ketchup to Pikachu, who barely looked up from the TV screen to get it. Ash left all of them and went to his room. Ash's room was nice and cozy. The walls were painted a dazzling shade of sky blue. And the floors had a wood finish. The walls were plain except for a few posters and pictures. The door to his closet held a hat rack and he hung his cap and his red sleeveless jacket on it. He had a large bed, and a 3-drawer nightstand next to it. Ash took off the belt that contained his Pokémon and lay them on the nightstand. He plopped down on the bed and promptly fell asleep. He awoke a little bit later, to find his side was weighted down. Misty lay by his side, dozing off. Ash looked at her as she slept, gazing in awe at her beauty. Misty stirred soon after, her blue eyes taking him in. "You know you're beautiful, right?" Ash said, grinning. "Ah, you say the truest things," Misty replied, grinning, and they started to kiss, softly at first, but then it got more intense. More passionate and heated. They hadn't kissed like that since the night they first admitted they had feelings for each other. That night, they were willing to go all the way. A situation like that hadn't presented itself in such a long time. Until now. Ash started to kiss down her neck, trailing downwards. Misty closed her eyes and began to moan softly, enjoying the tingling sensation he was giving her. She playfully tackled him and got on top of him, and they started making out again, almost impossibly with more intensity than before, their love and lust for each other, evident in their actions. Misty practically tore off Ash's shirt, revealing his lean and muscular torso, and she took hers off too, revealing her sports bra and toned body underneath. As things started to get even hotter, a loud ahem got their attention. Mrs. Ketchum stood in the doorway, shock written all over her face. "Dinner is ready. I advise you eat now, before it's all gone." THEY scrambled back into their clothes as fast as they could, faces red. Mrs. Ketchum left them promptly. "Oh, we are so dead," Misty wailed, straightening up her shirt. Ash stayed silent, putting back on his black shirt. Ash," Misty asked, putting a hand on his shoulder. "Misty, I think you're right," he said simply, not even bothering to turn around. At the dinner table, they sat in an uncomfortable silence, all of them. They ate Brock's special lasagna rather slowly, the tension thicker than the layers of the dish. Ash and Misty's heads were bowed, Jessie and James went about in ignorant bliss. Brock was withholding smirks and laughs and the Pokémon, Pikachu, Meowth and Togepi were busy having a conversation of their own. Finally, James broke the silence. "So, great weather we're having, huh?" "Yeah, great," everyone mumbled. I mean it's just so good. No rain, no clouds, just heavenly. I wonder if there are any roses blooming yet," he continued. He looked at Mrs. Ketchum. "Ash told me you garden. Do you know where I can find somebody who sells roses?" James asked her. There is a gardening shop up the road. I'll ask Ash to take you there, if he's not too busy," Mrs. Ketchum replied, her last few words drenched in sarcasm. Well, better get this over with now, Ash reluctantly thought. He put down his fork and knife. "Mom, I love her," he said simply. Mrs. Ketchum dropped her fork. "Oh, you do, don't you, Ash?" she asked, the sarcasm evident in her tone. Ash bowed his head almost lower. "I know you might not believe me, but it's true. I'm sorry I didn't tell you before. But circumstances just wouldn't allow it." Mrs. Ketchum sighed. "You are too young to know what love is. You like her, yes, attracted to her, yes, but love. You are too young." Jessie and James squirmed uncomfortably in their chairs. Mrs. Ketchum sighed. "I should have seen it coming," she said, although she had seen it coming between Ash and Misty. Should have seen it coming. With all due respect, Mrs. Ketchum, but it was just so obvious. Brock practically shouted from across the dinner table. "Brock, now isn't the time," Misty warned. To Brock's credit, he shut up. Mrs. Ketchum continued. "So when did it happen, huh? When did you two become a couple?" "A little while ago," Ash answered, slowly and softly. "A little while ago. A little while ago. And you already decide to have sex?" She exploded. By then the rest caught on with what was happening. "But, Mom," Ash spluttered out. "Don't, but Mom, me, Ash Satoshi Ketchum. Do you even know what kind of weight? What kind of responsibility that comes along with sex? She shouted out at him, rising in her chair. But, Mom, Ash pathetically whined. There's a game on. Who wants to see it? Brock quickly said, and stood up with his plate and fork in hand. Quickly the table scattered, leaving only Ash, Misty and Mrs. Ketchum there. You are too young to be doing that. Why, oh why do you feel you must do it? To go around like a bunch of garados in heat. She continued. Well, Ash tried to say in his defense. Don't even think about saying, I love her. But it's because I want to express my love to her. Ash said, intently and sincerely, looking up. Mrs. Ketchum sat back down and digested her son's words. After a couple of minutes of tense silence, she spoke again. Fine. You are old enough to be making your own decisions, and your own choices. If you two want to go about acting like a bunch of nitteran smack dab in mating season, be my guest, she said simply. Mom, that's not fair. Anyway, I thought that you'd be happy about me and Misty finally getting together. Ash sighed, his disappointment at his mother's words written all over his face and in his voice. Mrs. Ketchum sighed also. I'm sorry, too, Ash. I am. I think the world of you and Misty, but it's just a bit of a shock, that's all. I'm sorry about what you saw, Mrs. Ketchum. Misty finally spoke up. Deciding now would be a good time to put in her 2 cents. Well, just not let it happen again, okay? If you are going to do it, at least lock the door, alright? Mrs. Ketchum replied. The 2 teenagers nodded their heads quickly. Then Ash remembered something. Hey, what about your date, huh? Ash asked. Mrs. Ketchum started to blush furiously. Nothing else was said. Later that night. It was the dead of the night, a few hours past midnight, a few hours till sunrise. Ash lay on his bed, Misty under an arm. He was bareback, and she was in one of her t-shirts she slept in. Sheets covered them, hiding Ash's boxers and Misty's pajama bottom. Misty was dead asleep, but Ash still awake, mulling over the events of the day. He was awake ever since Misty had fallen asleep at a few minutes past midnight. He didn't want to bother her with his problems or his thoughts, and took some comfort in her presence, the smell of her hair, the warmth of her body. It was some comfort and solace, but it wasn't much. Ash kept replaying the evening in his mind, his mother going ballistic on him and Misty and what she said. As young and horny as Ash was, he still realized his mother was right. Ash sighed as he came to the realization. They were a little too young, at least Ash was. Misty was 19 by now. He was still 17. Not only was there the whole cradle rocking thing going on, it was illegal of what they were doing, or planning to do. We have to wait, Ash thought to himself. He looked down at the angel under his arm. She looked so peaceful, so beautiful asleep. With a sigh, he kissed her forehead, and closed his eyes. Sleep came a lot sooner than expected. Team Rocket headquarters. Giovanni was in his private quarters, about to turn in for the night. He was in a large room. The size of a small apartment. The walls were overlaid by oak paneling, the carpet a thick burgundy shag. Light came from 4 lamps in the corners of the room, all 4 controlled by the switch on the wall. His bed was positioned in the middle of the far wall, a nightstand with a vid phone on top. A large Chester drawer and mirror was on the opposite side of the room. His closet was almost opposite of the door. It looked like your average millionaire playboy's penthouse bedroom. It was anything but. The oak paneling hid heat-tempered steel alloy, strong enough to resist most tank fire and acids. It also hid elaborate life support equipment that could sustain 5 people for up to a week. The closet had a false wall where you could hide and escape from any invasion. And 2 other secret exits were under the carpet. The Chester drawer also held 6 Pokeballs with Pokemon created in the genetic labs of the Team Rocket laboratories. Along with the Pokemon, it also held enough weaponry and ammo sufficient for 10 people to stave off an attack. Only 2 people in Team Rocket knew about the complete specs to Giovanni's bedroom. One was dead, and the other was her son. The boss went over to the bed and awoke the sleeping young woman on it. Her large eyes flung open, and a smile was on her face. She was very attractive and one of the new recruits. Luckily for her, Giovanni had mused. She had 3 things going for her. She was smart, she was drop-dead gorgeous, and she had no gag reflex. Unfortunately, Giovanni's bedroom wasn't the White House. Agents got promotions the old-fashioned way, they earned them. Giving good head or having the body of a contortionist didn't get you that far. "Hey, there, boss," she said in a husky whisper, looking up at him. Giovanni gave a cold smirk in reply. Giovanni didn't really care for her, and if she thought that she was the only one willing to do a few extra things for a promotion, she was sadly mistaken, oh so sadly mistaken. "Get out. I need to sleep," he said coldly, hoping she would leave in a hurry. The woman looked shocked, but got up out of the bed. "But what about," she started, getting off of his bed, naked. Giovanni noted she had a great body, but he had seen better. Far better. "Out. You are beginning to irritate me," he said in the same cold tone. She huffed in indignation, and gone to pick up her clothes from off the ground. The new recruit hadn't come with any underwear, so she just put back on her standard uniform, the black micro-skirt most likely modified by her to suit her style, so short if she bent in the wrong way, everyone would know she was going commando, the black halter top that displayed her toned abs, and the rocket shirt, the red R prominently displayed. No, you weren't even so damn good," she said angrily, totally forgetting who she was talking to. Giovanni's cold tone gave way to genuine irritation. "What was that?" he asked her, starting to advance upon her. The annoyance in his voice showing. She recovered quickly, but not quick enough. No, I didn't mean that," she stammered out, brushing a pink strand of hair from her face. Giovanni wagged a finger in her face. "If there is something I will not tolerate, is someone telling me something so impossible, so despicable. You know I was the best lover you ever had," he shouted at her, and in truth, he was. But her pride got in the way of her saying so. The new recruit had always been accustomed to people doing what she wanted, especially after when they did what she and Giovanni did. "Oh, you think so, huh?" she shouted at him, matching his tone with hers. "Well, that is so far from the truth." Without missing a beat, Giovanni slapped her across the face hard enough to knock her backwards. As she was momentarily stunned, Giovanni grabbed her by the hair, and threw her on the bed. "Oh well, tonight, I might just be your last lover," he thundered. She looked at him in surprise, and realized she was never more afraid of anyone else in her whole life. "Get out of my room, before security will have to drag your lifeless ass out," he finished through gritted teeth. His fists clenching and unclenching, his face red. The new recruit was still holding onto her bruised cheek, and her eyes were shimmering with tears. She picked herself off the bed and left. Giovanni watched her leave and allowed himself to relax. He walked over to his vid phone and punched in a few numbers. After 2 rings, the person he called picked up. The person and the vid phone was his right-hand man, Michael. He was a handsome man in his early 30s, but he looked 10 years younger. He had midnight black hair, that was slicked back, only a stray hair out of place. He had piercing dark blue eyes that were startlingly intense. He didn't have an ounce of fat on his muscular body, nor an imperfection on his skin except a scar across the bridge of his nose. "Good night, Giovanni," he said in his thick Irish accent. "Hello, Michael. Is everything well?" Giovanni asked him. One of the many duties of Michael's was to make sure security was tight and in place. "Well, yes. Except for the fact we are under attack by every Jenny in existence," Michael replied with a smirk. Giovanni let loose a chuckle. Michael was one of the few people who could get away with making a joke like that in his presence. Over the 5 years Michael had been working in Team Rocket, he had been the closest thing to a friend Giovanni had. "Well, then, since everything is okay, how is our guest Rumika?" Giovanni inquired. Michael's displeasure wasn't hidden over the vid phone. "Hey, look, Gio, I don't think that you should go through with this. Just let those kids go." Giovanni started to feel anger well up in him. "Michael, no matter if we are friends, you cannot tell me what I can, or cannot do," Giovanni said, an edge in his voice. His right-hand man sighed. "Gio, I Saint think that this is wrong," he started, but was cut off. "Wrong?" the boss asked, stifling the urge to grin. "Michael, since when did we do what was right? We are a criminal organization, after all." Michael laughed, but then cut back to business. "I know this, but it's just so wrong. I have a feeling, that's all. We should leave them alone." I did some checking on their files, and all three of them have had rough lives. Especially the boy. And to bring his fiancée in on this. She's a sick bitch. Giovanni allowed himself the evil smirk. That's right. Why else do you think I asked her here? To prance around naked and go twiddle her thumbs. Michael laughed again at that. Well, that would be nice to see, but still. I think those guys have had enough done in their lives, and they deserve to be happy. Michael. They failed me and didn't have the balls to properly resign. They deserve whatever I give them, Giovanni hissed. But Gio, to hand in their resignation after 18 or a certain rank is certain death. You know this, I know this, why in the hell do you think they didn't come here to hand in their resignation? Only I'd be crazy enough to do that. Giovanni laughed at his remark. And deep down in his gut, he knew he was right. Michael would do something so crazy, so suicidal like that just to come out and say that he did it. Fine, then Michael, I will not have you included in on this. In fact, I have a mission for you already. You'll get it in the morning. Sleep well, Giovanni said in closing, almost warmly. Of course, he would never admit that. No problem, my friend. I shall see you in the morning. Good night, Michael said, giving a slight comical wave. Good night, Giovanni replied, and cut the connection. The leader of Team Rocket put the phone back on its cradle and then picked it up again. He dialed a number he had only had to dial 4 times in his 10 years as leader of Team Rocket. Only he and a handful of Rockets knew about the number and whom it connected to. And those who did knew that if he had to use them, it was bad. The person who answered was shrouded in darkness, the only thing that could be seen was the small red R on his all-black uniform. It was on the lapels of his shirt, but you couldn't really tell. Yes, sir. The person asked, his raspy and deep voice making Giovanni cringe. It wasn't as horrible as that other agent, Butch. But it made a shiver go down the back of Giovanni's spine. Is everything in place? He asked. Yes. 1 more week and we will have them. Giovanni nodded his head. Good. Oh, and if you can, try to get that damn Pikachu. Right. Giovanni out. Giovanni shut the connection, and went to bed. As he closed his eyes, he tried to forget the sound of that voice. Even thou. He had seen and done many a thing in his time, that voice always managed to give him the creeps. The Ketchum residence, 5 days later. Bye, Mom. See you later. Ash called out, as he and his friends were on their way to their next adventure. If they knew what was in store, they would have stayed in the Ketchum house, hidden under their beds and bawled for their lives. As it was, they went around in blissful ignorance. Bye, Ash, everyone. And honey, don't forget to change your you-know-what. Mrs. Ketchum called out, as they walked down the road. Ash promptly face-faulted. Mom, Ash whined. As the Ketchum residence disappeared from sight, Ash Tachi decided to stop and decide where to go. Well, the next stop is Viridian, Brock pointed out, consulting his map. Jesse, James and Meowth all sweat dropped. Let's not go down there, alright. Let's head down to, Wakaba, Jessie said nervously, a fake smile plastered all over her face. Not surprisingly, the other former Rockets all mirrored her smile. Oh, geez. You mean to tell me, you guys didn't hand in your resignations yet? Brock asked in exasperation. Ash cocked an eyebrow but kept silent. Misty clutched Togepi and backed up a little at that. Too. No, James said, noticing their weird actions, and waved his hands. We can't officially resign. It wouldn't make sense. Why not? Ash asked, folding his arms. Because if they did, we wouldn't have the pleasure of hauling them back to HQ, a loud voice called out. Meowth dropped on all fours, and began to hiss like mad. Jesse and James froze up, and looked ready to run at the drop of a hat. Who said that? Ash called out, irritation sounding in his voice. He backed up warily, his hands reaching down to his Pokeballs. Oh, no you don't want to do that Mr. Pokemon Master. The voice called out again, and the sound of guns being chambered resounded throughout the air, all around them. Oh, God, no, Jesse whispered. Meowth looked up at Brock, Ash, Misty and Pikachu. Run, you idiots, run. He shouted, the urgency in his voice carrying clear through the air. Out of surrounding bushes, a man came out. He was tall, and muscular, but that was all you could tell. His uniform was of all black, from his boots, to his pants and turtleneck shirt, and the mask on his face. The black hid any other weapons he had on him. The only thing not black on him was the small red R on the lapel of his shirt. He toted the Heckler & Koch MP5 submachine gun in his hands. He held it in a two-handed grip, and carried it like he knew how to use it. And he did. In fact, he knew how to use almost any weapon in modern warfare and not so modern, as evidenced by the katana he had on his back. Now, slowly, raise your hands up, hands open, fingers spread. I want to see your palms, everyone, and don't think I don't have you all covered. The rest of my section is here, he told them, watching them all. Ash did as he was told, but a plan was running through his head. He tensed his body in anticipation, and waited for the chance. Pikachu was on his shoulder, keeping his mouth shut, not wanting to draw attention to himself. Don't worry, Pikachu. Everything will be alright, Ash whispered reassuringly to the Pokémon. Now, go over with Misty, okay? The Pokémon nodded and bounded over to Misty, and was on her shoulder. As the guy was momentarily distracted, Ash took his chance. He ran, as fast as he could, and tackled the guy to the ground. In his flight towards him, Ash's cap fell off of his head. They landed in a tangle of arms and legs. Ash started to pummel the guy's face, and was surprised when he didn't put up a fight. As he continued to pound, Ash noticed his fists were getting hurt with each punch. Nice try, mister, but it's my turn, the man in black said, and threw a punch of his own at Ash's face. His black-gloved hand collided on the side of Ash's face. Ash was thrown off, and blood sprayed from his mouth. Ash! The group screamed collectively. Misty shielded Togepi's eyes with her hand, and closed her eyes. Ash landed a few feet off of the guy, and hit the ground with a thud. The man leapt up, grabbed Ash by the lapels, pulled him up, and gave him a right-handed haymaker that sent him flying back some more. Brock rushed to help his friend, but was held back by Jesse and James. Why won't you let me help him? He asked incredulously. Because, all you'll do is make it worse, James replied. Brock saw the pained expressions on their faces. By the time he looked back up, Ash was on the ground, unconscious. The black-clad Rocket walking over to him. He grabbed Ash by the hair and dragged him over by to where the rest were standing. He threw Ash down at their feet. Brock tried to take him, but was held back by Jesse and James again. In a speed that rivaled superhuman, his sword was out, and came down on Brock's neck. It happened so fast, Brock didn't even realize the sword was at his neck until he noticed his reflection in its edge. Oh, shit, he said, his eyes getting as wide as they were going to. Jesse looked up at the Rocket, as did James. I know who you are. Yo. Part of that squad of Rocket assassins, the Crimson Plight, aren't you? She said, hate in her eyes. The other Rocket's smile was evident in his voice. Well, I'll be. We're famous. You're a bunch of sick bastards, you know that. James spoke up, uncharacteristically sarcastic and tough. The Rocket wagged a finger in his face. Not as sick as that fiancé of yours. Now shut up. We have a bit of ground to cover. James paled, and he closed his eyes. Oh, no, not her, he droned. The Rocket removed his sword from Brock's neck, causing a slight, superficial wound on his neck. Brock hissed in pain. You guys really should pick your friends more carefully. Sometimes they could get you into a bunch of crap, the guy said, as he retrieved his gun, and led them off. Death. No one really knows what happens when you die. Oh, wait. Some do, but they can't exactly come back and tell us what happened. You can give it all sorts of fancy terms, speculate all you want while you're living. But you won't know for sure until you kick the proverbial bucket yourself. As I lay here on the hard steel ground, my life oozing out of me by the bullets in my back, I start to wonder about it. Because I'm starting to feel its embrace. I never gave it much of a thought. You know, death. And why should have I? I was a 22, happy-go-lucky type of guy. Everyone who knew me, Mondo, knew what type of a guy the first was. Ironic, isn't it? The same organization I had given the majority of my teenage years and all of my too short adult life, are responsible for this. For robbing me of the rest of it. And the bastard who did it, the one who killed me, shot me in the back, was the man who was the closest thing to a father figure I ever had. Giovanni. The boss. Questions go through my mind as it starts to shut down. How did things change so quickly? How did I end up dying? Amazingly enough, it started in one day. Today. The day I died. Team Rocket headquarters. Mondo walked into HQ. Weary both in body and spirit. Usually a happy-go-lucky type of guy, he had a haggard expression on his handsome face. His standard-issue white rocket uniform was dirty and ripped in a few places, but he didn't seem to mind. His brown hair clouded around his face, and his green eyes were bloodshot. The last few weeks had been trying on him. On top of having a very difficult mission handed to him out of the blue. He also found out that Jesse and James had taken their leave of Rakuten without handing in their resignations. And since Mondo was over 18, he knew what that meant. Mondo had been both hurt and worried over his friend's disappearance. He knew why they didn't tell him that they left, but it still hurt nonetheless. They were his best and longest friends Mondo had, ever since his rookie days. Mondo and James were like the best of friends. He always had looked up to him, and admired him greatly. They had a bit of a big brother, little brother relationship and told each other everything. Except Mondo never told him one thing. Mondo was deeply in love with Jessie. To Mondo, she was the apple of his eye, his envisioning of the perfect woman. She was the most intelligent, beautiful, and strong-willed person he ever thought he would have the pleasure of meeting. Problem is, James felt the same way. From early on, Mondo had realized that maybe Jessie loved James too. In some deep, dark corner of his mind, Mondo would have loved for something to come between them so he would have a shot with her. But he would never hurt James. As Mondo won his way to the dormitory wing of the headquarters, he bumped into another member. "Pardon me," he muttered, stuck in his own little world, surrounded by his thoughts. "Watch where you're going, you stupid bastard," was the reply. If it were anybody else, Mondo would have kept on going, not really caring. But then, a person who sounds like a hyena with glass in their throat, anyone would take notice. "Butch," Mondo hissed. Butch was far from one of his favorite teammates. Butch was a bully plain and simple, along with being an arrogant bastard. Mondo had heard about the incident a few years back when Butch had accused Jesse of not very good things in his attempt to hurt James. Butch still bore the scar running down his face he received that day. "Oh, bitch boy Jr." Butch said in recognition. "What do you want?" Mondo asked, exasperated. He didn't mind Butch's name calling, and Butch knew what would happen if he tried to do anything to him. Butch leaned against the wall, and lit up a cigarette. "You, my friend, have a lot to answer for." Mondo folded his arms. "What are you talking about, Butch?" Without warning, Butch drove his fist into Mondo's gut, robbing him of his breath. Mondo buckled over, slumping to his knees. "James, Mondo gasped out, clutching his stomach, and gasping for air. "Not going to do a damn thing, boyo. And he can't help you where he is," Butch said, finishing the statement for him. Mondo looked up at him in fear. Butch had always intimidated him, but he always figured James would protect him if push came to shove. Now, with James' disappearance, he had no backup. The teal-haired rocket took a long pull on his cigarette, reveling in his handiwork. Then he kicked Mondo hard in the face, before turning around to leave. "See you around, bitch boy," he called as he made his way down the hallway. Mondo looked up at him, and rubbed his sore jaw. His green eyes were lit in fury, but he stopped himself from doing anything stupid. Butch was stronger, faster, several inches taller, several pounds heavier, and was the superior fighter. He didn't stand a chance. Coughing a few times to get air back into his lungs, he stood up and smoothed his brown hair back into position. Then he continued on his way to the dormitories. In about half an hour, he had finally reached his destination. His dorm was like all the rest of the others. Plain white walls and burgundy carpet was the general theme. It had all of the necessities like a bedroom, kitchenette, living room and bathroom, and it was the closest thing to home Mondo had. With a sigh, Mondo plopped down on the blue suede couch. He shucked off the white shirt with the red R on it, and threw it behind him, revealing his tight, black sleeveless t-shirt. Rubbing his belly, he flipped on the television, only to discover nothing was on. 200 channels, and not a damn thing to watch, he muttered under his breath. With a sigh, he turned off the TV and went to stretched out on the couch. He closed his eyes and began to sleep. Ring ring. Phone call, phone call. Ring ring. Phone call, called out his vid phone. With a groan he got up and answered the phone near the sofa. Mondo switched it on. Hello? He asked. The screen came to life, revealing the boss. Hello, Mondo, Giovanni greeted. Mondo drew to attention. The boss's mere presence was enough to get a rocket to military-style attention. Sir, what an unexpected pleasure, the rocket said. The boss chuckled softly at that. Indeed. Mondo, you are very close to the missing members, Jesse, James and Meowth, right? Giovanni asked. Mondo almost cocked an eyebrow at the question. Yes, sir, I am. I am sorry to say that I haven't heard from them, Mondo replied, a hint of sadness creeping into his voice. Giovanni scratched his chin, as if he were in thought. Well, I would like you to be by my office in half of an hour. I shall be waiting. His intuition was screaming something was wrong. But Mondo decided to hold any questions, for now. Yes, sir. With that the screen faded black as Giovanni cut the communication. At the far end of Trail HQ. Today wasn't a very good day for a hit. Especially a hit by sniper rifle. The winds were kicking up, the sky was overcast, and to top it all off, Michael was cold. He was hidden in the thick bushes on the hillside facing T. He lone building almost hidden by the leafy vegetation of the forest. Michael absent-mindedly scratched the scar across the bridge of his nose as he transferred the weight of the Tango 51 sniper rifle to his other hand. Then he reassumed his vigil of the compound. The biting winds whipped across his body, and he shivered. At this stage he couldn't tell if it were the cold or the adrenaline coursing through him. He started to silently curse the situation, his lack of comfort, and the high level of mortal danger he was in. But he remembered, he had done a lot more dangerous things in worse conditions than this. And finally, he would be able to do exactly what he had been planning all these years. Then, finally, after all the waiting he had gone through, he saw him. Or rather, them. The most secretive and efficient band of murderers Team Rocket ever had in their employ, the Crimson Plight. There was never more than 10 in service, and their services were rarely used. Each man of the 10-man squad was in the all-black uniform, turtleneck, military-style pants, boots, gloves and mask. The only thing that wasn't black on them was the dark red R on their lapels. Their uniforms hid bulletproof armor that protected them from head to toe. Each man carried a submachine gun, 2 pistols and a sword. The type of each was different to each man. Raising the scope to his eye, he took careful aim at the man in the lead. Aiming for his head, Michael allowed himself a tight grin, then he blotted out the world. To him, nothing existed except for him, the gun, and his target. With a release of clenched air, he fired his rifle. It leapt slightly in his hands as it fired its almost silent payload. The 7.62mm slammed into the side of the Crimson Plighter's head. It penetrated his head armor, blowing away a good portion of his skull. He went down, spraying blood and brain tissue all over the forest floor. Without a word, the others withdrew their weapons and fired into the bushes, shattering the relative silence of the forest. The bushes were almost instantly obliterated in the hail of lead. They emptied their clips into the hillside, and stood at alert, their gun barrels smoking. One of them turned to the guy next to him. "Think we got whoever the hell it was?" he asked. Before he could answer, a loud something fell down the hillside in a loud crash. Their guns were reloaded and aimed at the general direction of the crash. Then they saw the source of the calamity. A dead Pidgey, its body mangled by the bullets, lay at the base of the hill. Some of the rockets laughed at the absurdity of the situation. Their laughter was cut short by one thing. "Damn, I was hoping to catch that later." A voice called out from behind them. They turned around to see Michael standing there, with a smug grin on his face. Immediately, the closest one dropped his submachine gun, and withdrew a Smith & Wesson SW40E.40 pistol. In a flash, Michael threw 2 spheres the size of marbles at him. A bright flash and loud bang later, the rocket still stood, his gun still pointed in Michael's direction. Michael stood in the same position, his .44 Magnum Desert Eagle pointed at the rocket. The rocket started to laugh. A low menacing chortle. "Your gun won't work on me, dumbass. I'm protected against most calibers." "Maybe," Michael replied, "but last I checked the stuff I splashed on you would certainly weaken your armor so it could work." The rocket finally noticed his gun starting to deteriorate in his hands, the strong acid destroying the polymer frame. As his attention was diverted, Michael fired his weapon. The type of ammunition loaded in the Desert Eagle was a bullet that was commonly called elephant killers, partly because of their ability to penetrate even its tough hide. Usually homemade, these bullets made sure their target stayed dead, elephant or man, as was the case now. The damaged armor tore apart like tissue paper, and almost imploded the rocket's chest. A hole the size of a tennis ball appeared in the front, and a hole the size of a basketball marked the exit of the bullet. The rocket was dead before he hit the ground. Before the others could react, Michael dropped the Desert Eagle and swung the Tango 51 into firing position. He aligned his shots and squeezed the trigger twice, aiming for a head shot. His aim was good as ever, and they dropped like stones. As he aimed for the other 6 still standing, they snapped out of it, and started to open fire on him. Cursing, he dove out of the way, while reaching for one of the grenades hanging from his belt. As they started to draw a bead on him, Michael threw it, tucked and rolled. As soon as the explosive touched the ground, it exploded, throwing 2 of them in the air. They were the lucky ones. The grenade had exploded practically in their faces, killing 3 of them instantly, and blowing off the legs of the last one. He started to scream in pain, but was silenced. Forever by a round to the head from the Desert Eagle Michael had retrieved. The remaining Crimson Plighters were trying to get their bearings back, when Michael approached them from behind. Without a word, Michael took careful aim. One of them looked up in time to look into the large barrel of the gun. Michael pulled back the trigger. Giovanni's office. Mondo stood outside of the room, his arms folded as he waited for the boss to call him inside. He had stood like this for a little more than 10 minutes. For what had to be the 100th time, he folded back his right glove to see his watch. It was still the same time since he had looked at it last. Every once in a while, a rocket would pass by, but they were too busy to pay him much mind. After a long time, Mondo heard the click of the lock being released. He stood at attention. His boss, Giovanni, came out. He turned around and acknowledged him. Mondo. Good, you're here, Giovanni said. As usual, he was dressed in the tailored red silk suit. His black, thinning hair was slicked back. From the way the lights shined on it, it had to be hair gel. He pulled in the mahogany door behind him, and started towards his private elevator. Mondo followed him. They exchanged no words as they went into the brightly lit elevator car. Mondo's boots clicked against the metallic floor. After pressing in a few numbers on the panel, Giovanni stood right in front of the doors. The elevator jerked slightly as it started its descent. In a little less than 5 seconds, it jerked once more, indicating its stop. The doors slid open. Come on, Mondo. We don't have all day, Giovanni said, and exited. Taking his cue, Mondo followed. They entered into a narrow and brightly lit hallway. The walls were painted in white. Combined with the lights and the paint, the hallway had a bit of a claustrophobic effect. Mondo could not judge the distance to the end of it. In fact, he couldn't tell if there was an end. Giovanni strode on, putting a hand over his brow to help lessen the glare. Mondo followed as best as he could. After what seemed to be about 100 yards, Giovanni made a sudden turn. A door slid back and they entered through there. It was a dank, dark jail block. The stench of human waste and blood hung over the place. Everything was either black or gray. The dungeon seemed to be as old as time began, but the prison cells betrayed that it was rather new. Or rather, at least those were one of the few things that were kept new. As Mondo's eyes readjusted to the dim lights, he fought back a wave of nausea rising in his stomach. Giovanni turned around and folded his arms, waiting for a response. Why did you bring me here? Mondo asked, fighting the urge to hold his nose and run out of the place. Again, some instinct in him told him to do just that. But he ignored it. This is a test of your loyalty. You decide what happens to these people here, Giovanni replied, his mouth in a thin grin, his eyes sparkling mischievously. Mondo looked at him in stunned silence. Once again taking the lead, Giovanni led him through a thick steel door. The lights almost blinded him once again. It was a large room, white its basic colors. It wasn't too brightly lit, but just enough. The lighting wasn't what got Mondo's attention. It was what was in it. James was strung up from the ceiling, hanging by his arms. His eyes were tightly shut as water came down from the ceiling. It wasn't a full shower, but a tiny trickle. Dressed in nothing but a pair of boxers, Mondo could plainly see all of his bruises, cuts, and the whip marks. They covered the entire expanse of his back, the skin turned to ribbons, bloody and raw. The water barely did anything to wash the blood, and Mondo could almost swear James was wincing under the water. "James," Mondo whispered, snapping James's eyes open. At first, he seemed wild-eyed and crazy, but recognition soon seeped in. Mondo?" James asked incredulously. He began to fight against his bonds. "Mondo, get out, man. Don't trust Giovanni," James screamed. Frightened, Mondo took a step back, though he was a good few feet away from James. Then he heard the sound of a whip crack in the air. And James stopped cold, fear seeming to radiate through his body. "Well, James, Dialin. What have I told you about screaming like that?" A cultured, female, southern voice said. Originating from some other entrance into the room. The owner stepped into the room, and into the light. Mondo gasped once more. She was Jessie. Or rather what Jessie would look like. If she had cut her hair to shoulder length, and then styled it in pigtails. She wore a red riding jacket, and khaki-colored riding pants, stuffed into calf-length boots. The ruffles of her white blouse seemed spotted with drops of blood. "Now, my dear, I guess we're just going to have to punish you, now don't we?" she said rather matter-of-factly. With that, she took out her cat-o'-nine-tails whip and drew her arm back. Before it came down, James uttered his last warning. "Leave the team," he shouted at Mondo before the biting end of the whip found purchase in his flesh. He screamed in pain, drawing a tear from Mondo's eye. Giovanni looked on approvingly. "No, leave him alone," Mondo yelled, making a dash for James, only to be roughly held back by Giovanni. He started to struggle, and after he felt a needle penetrate his skin. The effect of the tranquilizer took almost immediate effect. "Not yet, Mondo, my boy," Giovanni whispered as Mondo fell to the ground. "Not yet." Mondo blacked out. Mondo opened his eyes slowly, not too sure of what was going on. All he knew was that he was comfortable. He looked around him, and discovered he was on a large bed. He whipped his head up and observed his surroundings. The room he was in was pretty nondescript. It had very few things in it including the bed, a dresser and a TV. Light came from an overhead fixture. Mondo sat himself up in the bed and shook his head. "Is he okay?" Jessie asked him quietly. Mondo almost died of fright. Jessie was sitting up right next to him, her hair pooling around her face, not giving Mondo a chance to see it. "Jessie?" Mondo asked incredulously. She turned to him, allowing him to see her face. Her eyes were bloodshot and tear stains were all over her cheeks. A slight bruise was beginning to form on her forehead in the shape of a rifle's butt stock. "Is he, or is he not okay?" she asked again, her voice becoming more firm. Mondo's eyes welled up with tears. No, I don't think so, Jess." Mondo said before he began to sob. Jessie sprouted tears of her own, but she hugged him close to her and both of them cried softly. When Mondo was done, he finally noticed what she was wearing. Or rather, what she wasn't wearing. Jessie was in a skimpy two-piece lingerie ensemble. The red of the material was almost as deep as the red in hair. Mondo backed up and blushed furiously. "Jessie, what are you doing in that?" Mondo asked, backing away, only to discover he was stripped of all his clothes except his briefs. And they were suddenly not fitting too well. Jessie sighed and folded her arms over her chest. "Call it Giovanni's idea of a sick joke," she muttered under her breath. "Oh really, Jessie, my dear." It sounded like Giovanni, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Where's that coming from?" Mondo asked. Jessie pointed up at the light fixture. "There. That's where he watches from. And records from," she replied, gritting her teeth in anger. The TV came on by itself. The 45-inch screen filled with Giovanni's smug face. "Mondo, I see you've awakened," Giovanni began before Mondo interrupted him. "You sick bastard. Why did you do this to my friends?" Mondo shouted at him, his rage spilling forth. Giovanni's grin disappeared, but he seemed to be holding his anger in check. "The only reason why I'm giving you this opportunity is because of your years of loyal service and your amazing track record. Do not interrupt me again or else I'll give you the pleasure of seeing your friends die slowly and painfully," he said, tight-lipped. Mondo shut his mouth. Now, Giovanni continued. The opportunity I'm giving you is to have your loyalty tested. It's not even a hard test. In fact, it's quite enjoyable. He paused for effect. All you have to do is have intercourse with Jessie. Quote. And what if I don't? Mondo asked fearfully. The screen changed into a split screen. One side had a view of James being whipped by Rumika. The other showed the Pokemon trainers, Ash, Misty, and Brock in their cells. Ash was on the bench being tended to by Misty. Apparently, he was badly beaten and was having problems breathing. Misty was saying something to him, but the sound wasn't coming through. Giovanni's voice did, though. You know what's going on with James already. I could make it all stop. And though I can imagine you don't much like the others, I know you still don't like to see people get hurt or killed. So decide, and decide well, Giovanni concluded. It's all up to you. And her. With a final smile, the TV turned off. Mondo was in shock, but Jessie was sobbing softly. Mondo looked at her, and his heart seemed to break. There's no way out, she said through her tears. Ash tried, and look what happened to him. Mondo lowered his head, and looked away from her. So, what do we do? Jessie sobbed for a little, then shut her eyes. She forced herself to stop crying. Mechanically, she wiped her face dry and all emotion disappeared from her face. Do it, she replied. But, Jess, this shouldn't even be an option. You love James and I'd never do that with you. Mondo, we don't have a choice. And you're right, it's not an option. It has to be done. She replied, her voice almost soulless. Then she sighed. It's not like I haven't done this with anyone but James, anyway. You mean? She nodded her head. EU and more profound anger erupted in Mondo. As if on cue, the TV flickered back on. Mondo turned his attention to the screen only to close his eyes quickly. Jessie closed her eyes and looked away herself, a tear slipping out. It was Jessie and Giovanni. Complete with sound and color. Her screams of outrage and sounds of struggle were still heard. Thankfully it was drowned out by Giovanni's voice filling the room. Unless you want to see this all the time, get started. Or, Jessie, you'll see my drowsy again. The boss boomed. The TV once again went dead. Wiping the new tear away, Jessie knocked Mondo on his back and straddled him. Jessie, he said in surprise. Her face was once again devoid of emotion. Mondo, just shut up, okay? This is for James, and for the twerps. And if you go along with it, you'll live to see another day. It's a small price to pay, she said matter-of-factly. But Jessie, I can't do this. Not like this at least. Mondo shrieked, though his body betrayed his words. Jessie got off of him. Damn you, Mondo. Let your pride go, she hissed. But I can't. Why? Just tell me why. Is it more important than their lives? Is it more important than James? She asked him angrily. I love you, damn it. He screamed, then buried his head in his hands. His body was racked in sobs. Jessie's eyes flew open in surprise. God, Mondo, you love me? She asked him timidly. Yes. Okay, yes I do. He roared suddenly, snapping his head back up. And I know I don't stand a chance. You love James. And I know he loves you. So I know I never have, or ever will have a chance, not one. I tried to fool myself at one time, but it didn't work. So I decided to just wait, and hope that someday you could at least like me in that way, without James getting hurt or anything. I know it's far-fetched. But I needed a reason to get up in the morning. I hoped for a day when I could kiss your lips, and stroke your hair, and you'd want me to do it, and it would just be us. But he lowered his head once more. Now I have to go and have sex with you, knowing I'd never have another chance like this ever, and I'm expected to do it. To never kiss you in that way, to never stroke your hair, or make love to you. I couldn't live with myself. I would have betrayed you, betrayed James, and betrayed myself. Jessie touched him softly on his shoulder. Mondo, you have to understand. We don't do this, you will die. My friends will die. James will die eventually, but it'll take a long time. And I'd live, yes. As Giovanni's whore, I'd rather give myself to you to know that James is okay, that you are okay. That my friends will be okay. Now please, please just do it. Mondo sighed. He gently kissed her softly on her lips. He put his hands around her in a tight embrace, pulling her body close to his tightly. As he softly opened her mouth open with his tongue, he stroked her hair with his fingers. Jessie closed her eyes and went with it, conflicting emotions battling in her head. She knew what she was doing. And she knew it was for James and her friends. But she was also enjoying Mondo's gentle touch. His hands moved upwards, and caressed her face. Then he put his hands on her waist. And kissed down her neck. His kisses led him lower and he traced her collarbone with his fingers. Taking a mental deep sigh, he lifted the lingerie top over her head. Tears ran down Jessie's face as he did this. As the cool air touched her bare skin, she had to withhold a sob. "Am I hurting you?" Mondo asked anxiously. "No," Jessie choked out, trying to keep her composure. She swallowed quickly, and urged him on. "Go on. Please," she said. Mondo looked at her in her near nudity, admiring her graceful curves and flawless skin. He sighed. "I'm done," he said. Jessie opened her eyes. "What? I'm done," he repeated. Jessie furrowed her brow. "Last time I checked, this wasn't intercourse. Now stop screwing around and screw me, damn it. I don't want James's blood on our hands." Mondo looked away from her. "Jessie, this is as far as I can go. This has been all I've wanted. To touch you and hold you. Going all the way would only cheapen it. I'm satisfied." Jessie slammed her fist into the side of his jaw, evoking a cry of pain from him. Stars clouded his vision as he started to slump on the bed. "Gotta do everything myself," Jessie muttered. With that, she took up the comforter from the mattress and covered both of them with it. "Wake up, Mondo. Damn you," she hissed at him, her temper flaring up. He shook his head slightly to keep conscious. "Jessie?" he asked, his speech slurred. Yeah, this is dream, okay," Jessie said anxiously. He nodded his head. Then he seemed a bit peeved. "Hey, how come you're not wearing that silver dress?" he asked. "Mondo, you're reaching third base. Where do you think the dress is?" "Good point." 1 hour later, Mondo got out from under the covers, his hair disheveled, a slight grin on his face. He looked up at the ceiling fixture. His grin disappearing. "I did it," he said simply. A couple of seconds later, Giovanni's voice came over the hidden intercom system. "Is this your choice, Mondo? Are you sure?" Giovanni asked, his voice strangely neutral. Mondo cocked his eyebrow in confusion. I should know if I did it or not, right?" he replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "Good, Mondo. It's good to know where your loyalty lies." Then the intercom went dead. A minute later, Giovanni opened the door, followed by 2 other Rocket members, their pistols drawn. With a smirk, Giovanni threw Mondo's uniform at him. "Put it on. And get her up. We've got to get going to the auditorium," Giovanni ordered. Uncomfortably, Mondo put on his uniform and shook Jessie awake. Glaring angrily, she got out of the bed and put on the matching shawl. Though it still didn't help maintain her modesty. Then with as much dignity as she could muster, she raised her head up and stood in front of Giovanni. "He was a much better lover than you'd ever hope you'd be," she spat out at him defiantly. Surprisingly, Giovanni chuckled. "You keep fooling yourself, my dear. There's always a lifetime to prove that wrong," he replied. Jessie lowered her head, his words hitting home. Taking Mondo by the hand, Giovanni led them from the room, taking the lead, Mondo at his side. They walked through the narrow hallway, their boots clanging on the steel plates. As they walked, Giovanni produced a cigar. He offered one to Mondo. "No thanks, sir. Bad for my health and all that," he said. Giovanni grinned. "Well, that's funny you should mention health. My boy," Giovanni said, taking his cigar out of his mouth. "Last time I checked, having intercourse did not include wrapping a comforter over your bodies, movin' around and moaning like if you're actually doing it." Mondo's eyes opened wide, as he realized that their deception had been discovered. He knew what was going to happen now. Steeling himself, he stood straight at attention. "And if I had to do it again, I wouldn't have changed a thing," Mondo replied, his staring straight ahead, his gaze unwavering, his voice clear. Giovanni lit the cigar. Quote, "I'm giving you 5 seconds to run as fast as you can. If you try to do the brave thing and stay here, then Jessie will take the bullet for you. Now go." Mondo turned around, before giving Jessie one last long look. Then he turned around and began to run. Almost immediately, 3 shots rang out, and Mondo felt the bullets go through his back, puncturing his vital organs. The force of the bullets cut him down. And he landed hard on the ground. As blood began to leak from his mouth, he turned around. "You bastard," he choked out, staring at Giovanni. Giovanni blew a ring of smoke in the air. "Maybe. But I'm the bastard who's still living," he replied. Jessie shrieked and ran to Mondo's side. As tears poured from her eyes, he looked up at her and smiled. "Thank you. Get out of her. Alive, and put one in that bastard for me," he stammered out. Jessie shook her head in agreement, knowing it was too late to do anything for him. "I promise you," she whispered. Mondo reached up and wiped the tears from her cheeks. "Another life," Jessie whispered to him. Then his eyes glazed over, and he slipped into unconsciousness, never to awaken again. 6 years earlier. "So, let me get this straight. You want me to join Team Rocket, act as a mole, and when the time is right, bust them. All the while, we'll have absolutely no protection from the law, and from TR, and I will be in constant danger." Me like. The person who said that was standing in the hot sweaty room of the police office. He was a striking man, though barely 25, had this air of danger and intrigue about him. He was built like a featherweight boxer. Long sinewy muscle. His dark blue hair was slicked back, even though 1 or 2 strands stayed in the front. Dark shades hid his piercing black eyes, even though people could sense him watching. Dressed in all black, from his jacket and shirt, to his loose slacks and boots. He had no name, at least for the moment, so all the people present called him what he was called in the streets, Angelus. The people present other than him were 3 sergeants, one of the many Officer Jennies, now a lieutenant, a Nurse Joy and the Commissioner of Police. They were all here to discuss with Angelus a large problem. The Team Rocket problem. Crime rates were slowly but surely rising and the severity of the crimes as well. "Then I believe you'll help us?" asked the commissioner. A heavy-set man in middle age. "When I said, me like, I accepted." "Duh," Angelus replied. As he left the room, he shot back over his shoulder, "Don't call me, I'll call you." Then he left. 6 years later. And now Jessie. You either show them who you belong to, or James will be tortured like this for the rest of his life. However short that may be, Giovanni said to her, his voice carrying through the auditorium, reaching the ears of the many rocket agents, and assorted guests there. Giovanni was on the podium sitting in a chair. Dressed in a red silk suit, he looked every bit of the menacing demon that his men and his captors perceived him to be. Jessie was handcuffed to his chair, looking helpless and defenseless, clad in only a skimpy lingerie. Her limp, red hair pulled around her, as if it was a desperate attempt to shield her almost nakedness. James was stringed up spread-eagled in front of them, a mass of blood and bruises and scars. His eyes were locked on Giovanni, rage and sadness in his eyes. He struggled against his bonds, drawing more blood from his already abused body. Rumika, Jessie's doppelganger, looked a bit shocked at first, but reasoned James would crack. "Damn you, Giovanni. Damn you, you fucked up bastard," Jessie murmured under her breath. She tried to get up, to say it to his face, but he'd put a wagging finger in her face. "Oh, no my dear. No more of that foul mouth of yours. One more defiant word to me, I will have them cut out James' tongue. On second thought, I'll make you do it." Jessie kept her mouth shut. She knew he would just force his drowsy on her. The things that damned Pokemon did to her, while its master raped her body, it raped her mind. Jessie instead looked at James. Oh, how much trouble they were in because of her. For these days they were here. 5, 6. She had lost count. James had been sadistically tortured, both mentally and physically. They gave him drugs to make sure he couldn't lose consciousness, whipped him, beat him. Scrubbed iodine and salt in his wounds. Had him believe that Rumika was Jessie for a while. The list went on and on. James looked back at Jessie. He started to wail in terror and pity for her, unable to cry. He had cried himself dry and no longer was able to do so. If it were just him, he could have kept going, could have resisted the torture, but what Giovanni had done to Jessie. Recording their little sessions, as he put it. It was too much to bear. Ash and company were also there, prisoners as well. A botched rescue led to their capture. Their Pokemon, long since taken away to the Pokemon storage, made Ash, Misty, and Brock fend for themselves. They themselves had been tortured for a while, until Ash had broken loose. Ash had tried to fight his way out, to help save everyone. But he was caught and beaten. Every time he regained consciousness, they beat him some more. Misty and Brock tried to help him, but were held back by gunpoint. They had tried to advance on Misty, but Brock stopped them as best he could. That and the fact the boss told them not to damage the goods, made them leave her alone. Then of course, Mondo. Poor Mondo. Jesse still didn't know what they did with the body. All right, Giovanni, I'll do whatever you want, just let James go. Let them all go. I'll even marry you if you want, Jesse said suddenly, all hope gone. No, Jesse. Don't do it, please. James screamed at the top of his lungs. No, James. I'd do anything for you. I know I deserve it. Only I deserve to be punished, she said monotonously. Giovanni. Please, please, please. I'll go through with the wedding, I'll rejoin Team Rocket, hell, I'll kill myself, just don't make her go through with it. James yelled in desperation. James, you will go through with the wedding. I don't want your worthless ass in my organization, and if I wanted you dead I would just kill you myself. This is like more of an exhibition, a coup de grace, if you will. Commence, whore. I haven't all day, Giovanni said in a humorous voice. As Giovanni unzipped his pants, he heard a click and felt something cold and hard pressed to the side of his head. Waza a. An Irish voice called out. What the hell do you think you're doing? Giovanni demanded angrily. He turned his head slightly to see who it was. His eyes went wide with surprise. Michael. You. Giovanni whispered. Yeah, it's me. Hey look, I'd advise you to put on some clothes, he said, talking to Jesse. My hands are kind of tied, she replied. Hold still. Michael pointed his gun, took careful aim and fired. The bullet destroyed a link in the chain and set Jesse free. He then put the gun to the side of Giovanni's head. It took less than 3 seconds. The rockets in the crowd drew their guns and aimed them all at the stage. Michael had a grin on his face. With one word, I can have you killed, the boss hissed angrily at him. Oh, really? With one pull of me finger, I could shut you up, was his reply. You will pay dearly. You accept cash, check, or credit. You could have been my right-hand man. Your power would have been rivaled only by mine. And what kind of power is that? The power to rape, and kill, and torture those who just want to quit. The power to never walk around using your real name, your real identity. No, thanks. Right now though my power is rivaling yours, so hush your bum. Michael turned to the audience of people who had guns aimed at his head. He looked them all over, a smirk still on his face. Then he saw James, and his smirk turned into a frown. Cut him down, he ordered to one of the men. And tell that guy sneaking in the rafters to get his ass out there or I will shoot him. A curse was heard in the ventilation sys. Tem and the sound of them climbing down was heard. 2 agents went over to James and cut him down, leaving him unceremoniously on the ground. Well, Giovanni, I guess you're wondering who I am, huh? Well, believe it or not. I was sent by the cops to take down your little organization. And please, stop calling me Michael. It's Angelus. Quote. An audible gasp was heard in the room, as the turncoat was revealed. Guns were clenched even tighter, and more clicks were heard as bullets were being chambered. So, you were a traitor. I shouldn't have killed that man, then. Why in the world did I trust you? I thought you were my friend. Giovanni said. Maybe because of the way my eyes look in the candlelight or my finely chiseled ass, I don't care. The point is you did. And look what it cost you. Oh well, Angelus said smiling, shrugging his shoulders. Giovanni began to seethe in silent rage. Then an idea popped in his head. It was risky but he had to try. He threw his head to the side, the gun barrel now pointing at empty space. Before anyone could react, Giovanni had leapt off the stage. Kill him, Giovanni bellowed to his men. Just don't shoot the girl. Angelus dived away from Jesse, intent on not getting her harmed. Gunfire raced over his head and where he was seconds ago. Angelus fired wildly into the crowd, a few members of Team Rocket getting hit. He kept going and ended up to an exit. Giovanni turned to them. Follow him. 2 promotions to the man who brings me back his lifeless body. As the majority of the members ran off to get him, only 3 guards remained. The captives saw it as their chance. In a flash, Brock tackled the closest guard and wrestled him to the ground. Misty also followed suit, and managed to clobber the other guard. Giovanni turned in surprise at the commotion. but was hit from behind by Jesse. Giovanni staggered, but managed to keep conscious. He turned and punched the enraged redhead in her mouth. She stumbled back but launched a roundhouse kick to his head. The edge of her right foot connected with his temple, and Giovanni corkscrewed in the air and landed hard on the ground. Revenge was pushed aside in her head and ran towards James, who was still on the ground. She picked him up and cradled his head in her arms. "Oh, James, I'm so sorry," she whispered in his ear, fresh tears running down her cheeks. James stirred at Jesse's touch and the sound of her voice. His eyes opened wide. "Look out," he stammered out, but it was too late. Rumika had snuck up behind her and kicked her in the head. Jesse was knocked out immediately and she slumped to the ground. James snapped, all of the fury, anguish and pain that was building up in him starting to manifest themselves in his rage. Impossibly, he leapt up, the pain from his wounds only fueling him. His eyes were bloodshot, his girlishly handsome face twisted in a mask of rage. He started to advance on Rumika. "Well, good, you're up. Now that that uncouth tramp is out of the way, let's go," Rumika said with a grin on her face. Then she noticed James's anger, his whole being radiating hate and malice. "Darling, what's wrong?" Rumika asked, dumbfounded. Why did James look at her like that? It was unnerving. James would have to be punished later. "What's wrong?" James asked, his scowl deepening, taking another step towards her. "What's wrong?" he shouted at her, his hands clenching and unclenching. The part of James's mind that still functioned with any sanity was trying to remember all of the most painful and lethal moves he learned during training. Z's about his torturing Rumika played out in his head, making him almost giddy with delight. Then he began to laugh. It wasn't the usual arrogant laugh he used in his Team Rocket days, nor his real and heartwarming laugh. It was deep, low, maniacal laughter. James, why are you laughing like that? You are not supposed to laugh like that. Look, I'll show you the proper way," she started in annoyance. But was cut off by James putting his fingers around her throat and began to squeeze. To scream out in pain and anguish. To die in a slow, horrible manner. "Why, yes my dear, sweet Rumika, you will," James said. This side of James had only been out once. That time years ago when Butch had insulted Jesse. It was fueled by all of the repressed feelings and memories of pain and sorrow in his life. Once out, this side of James was capable of doing anything to anyone for doing anything wrong against the love of his life. A mad frantic plan imprinted itself in James's head. He wasn't going to kill Rumika, not just yet. Giovanni would have that pleasure. All James needed was a knife and several tons of salt. He punched Rumika hard in the face, knocking her out. He released the grip on her throat. And she slumped to the ground. He ran over to Giovanni's body. He kicked the leader of Team Rocket hard in the ribs, waking him up. Giovanni woke up to see James kneeling over him, smiling. "What are you doing, you dolt? I'll kill Jesse if you even touch me," Giovanni shrieked out in surprise. "Gee, well that's funny, seeing as to how you're going to be dead soon, beat Jesse's. Over there and see, you're going to die soon," James exclaimed gleefully. Giovanni suppressed a shudder. James picked him up roughly, and twisted his arm behind his back. They walked past the balcony, hidden from sight by stacked tables and chairs. Giovanni started to struggle, but James kicked him in the small of his back. As they passed the body of a fallen agent, James picked up the gun he had been issued. With a sudden movement, he threw the boss down on the ground and shot him in the right kneecap. Giovanni shrieked in pain, and clutched at his knee. Blood flowed freely from the horrible wound. "You ever saw that movie RoboCop?" James asked, as if he were talking to an old friend. Giovanni shrieked some more. "Oh, you did," James said, a grin planting itself on his face. He shot the other kneecap. Giovanni's screams of pain were good entertainment to him. "Do you remember that scene, where that guy had some lady hostage, and RoboCop was there?" James continued. "Man, that GU. Won't be able to do anything for a while, huh?" Giovanni's mind was racing. He had seen RoboCop, and he knew exactly what James was talking about. Trying his best to ignore the pain in his legs, he started to crawl away, leaving a trail of crimson on the floors. James walked alongside of the injured man, making a desperate and futile attempt to get away. As James talked, he replaced the spent clip with a fresh one and chambered the bullet. "Yeah, but that's for another time. Ever saw that episode of Family Matters when Carl got shot in the ass, like so? James said and shot Giovanni in the fleshy area of his butt. Giovanni started shouting out in more pain, now his butt spurting up blood, the red mixing in well with the crimson material of his suit. He still tried to crawl away, but was slowed down even more. James noticed this and scowled. Come on, man, walk and talk, walk and talk. With that, he kicked Giovanni in his injured rear, kicking him a few feet in front of him. Giovanni started to shed some tears. His bravado and confidence gone. Please, James, Giovanni begged, turning on his back, clasping his hands at him. Aw, isn't that cute? You're begging, that is so damn cute. James cooed at him, as if he were a baby, and pinched his cheeks. Then he stood back up. You know what? I'm going to put a bullet in your head. You deserve it. James shouted out proudly. He raised the gun, and aimed it at Giovanni's head, all humor gone from his face. Giovanni waited for him to pull the trigger. The pain was already too much for him to bear, and the blood loss was also too great. If he didn't get some medical attention in a few minutes, he knew he would die anyway. He squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the bullet to come. 10 seconds passed, 20 seconds. Giovanni opened his eyes, to see James wasn't there. Not wanting to take any chances, he started to crawl off again. A gunshot rang out, and he felt the bullet enter his heel. Ah! Giovanni yelled out. James was right behind him, grinning horrendously. Oh, no you don't. I had to get you a present for your going-away party. James said. He held up the wicked-looking knife in his hand. Oh, please no more. Please no more, Giovanni whimpered. Funny. Jesse said the exact same thing, and you didn't listen. I'm sorry. You should be. With that, James leapt on top of Giovanni, pinning his arms to his sides. Oh, what a nice canvas I have today. Today I will show the class how to skin eradicate. Any questions? James asked to a class full of students in his head. Yes. Johnny. No. You may not go to the bathroom right now, so just hold it. Pee on the floor if you want to. Just clean up after yourself. The maddened former Rocket said in exasperation at the imaginary student. He leered at Giovanni, and rubbed the dull blade of the knife on his face. Class is in session. Brock had just barely knocked out the guard when he looked around. Misty was holding the other T-Wo guards captive with 2 guns she picked up, and looked like she was more than ready to use them. Brock turned to his friend, Ash. He was covered in blood and bruises and cuts from the various beatings he had received. Even though it didn't seem the proper time, he chuckled. Ash was too stubborn for his own good. Ash breathed raggedly through his mouth, flinching involuntarily in pain. His chest went up and down, but barely. Hey Ash. Ash, Brock asked, as he started to shake him, gently. Ash slowly came to and opened up his good eye. The other had swelled shut. Misty. Is she okay? Ash rasped, trying to find her. She's okay. Don't worry, things are going to be alright. I'm hurt bad, man. It hurts to breathe, Ash started, but was caught short by a series of bloody coughs. Internal damage, Brock realized. Out of all of them, next to James, Ash had suffered the most damage, his attitude and defiance getting the crap kicked out of him. Repeatedly. The Rockets who beat him almost seemed to enjoy it. Hey, Ash. Just hold on, okay man? Brock asked him. He got an answer, another series of coughs. Brock helped his friend to his wobbly feet, being very careful not to jar him too much. Ash leaned heavily on him. His legs wobbly and ready to give at any given moment. Misty, where is she? Ash asked. Over there, Brock said, pointing at her. She was standing over 2 unconscious agents, gathering their guns. Misty. Ash called out, as loud as he could muster. He started to limp his way over to her. Ash. Misty replied and rushed over to him. They met and embraced, clinging tightly to each other. Oh, I'm so happy you're okay, Ash whispered in her ear, trying to withhold another series of coughs. His body went limp in her arms, and he buckled under her. Ash. Misty screamed, holding on to him. Throwing a bit of a smile, he said, what can I say? I get weak-kneed around you. Brock, help me out here. Misty yelled at her friend. Brock was by her side in a minute. We've got to get out of here, Misty anxiously said, looking at Brock as if he knew the answer. Brock looked back at her, and sighed. I don't know how to get out. There has to be some exit around here. But I don't have a clue of the lay of the grounds. She's standing right behind you. Brock looked behind him. Jessie stood there, rubbing her head with a hand. She looked the worst for wear, a couple of small bruises. But nothing life-threatening. Jessie, Brock began, but he was cut off. Shove it for now, okay. We need to find James, and then we get the hell out of here. Well, actually, we kill Giovanni and Rumika, then we get the hell out of here, she said matter-of-factly. Brock shut his mouth and tactfully held any comments. Instead he stood up, and took of his green vest, and handed it to her. I think you might want this, he said. Gee, well, green does bring out the color in my eyes, but the style is so passé, Jessie sarcastically replied, but she put it on anyway. Covering the red lace lingerie. Brock grinned at her remark, but was back to business. Ash is hurt bad. They busted him up pretty badly. And who knows how James is, through all the crap he was put through. Misty was ignoring them all, focusing intently on Ash. Oh, no, you don't catch him, you're not leaving me, do you understand? Misty screamed at him. I'll try not to, Ash whispered softly. Yeah, you better not. You still owe me a bike, Misty said, jokingly. Yeah, I do. Angelus raced down the halls, replacing the clip to his Glock 17. He had only 5 more magazines. And though each contained 17 bullets, it was barely enough to take out his pursuers. Ducking down a hall, he pressed his body against the wall, counted to 3 in his head, and burst out into the hall, his gun blazing. 5 hollow point bullets met their marks, hitting one guy in the chest, 2 in the torso of another, 1 entering the head of one, and another nailing an agent in his arm. Smiling, he ducked back into the hallway. His position was both a good and a bad one. If any of the rockets tried to come at him, he would be able to shoot them first, but the same thing was true for him. If he tried that stunt again, they would be expecting it. Angelus smoothed back a loose strand of his hair with his free hand, and started to run down the hallway. His shoes made a loud noise as he ran, alerting his pursuers he was moving. Firing a few shots behind him, not caring if they hit or not, he turned another hallway, and kept going. There was no need for him to stay. Already, HT bullets out of his 17 were used, so he had no need to reload yet. As he cleared the hallway, he almost backed back up. About 10 rockets were ahead of him, their weapons already out. He cursed and started to run towards them. They fired wildly at him, their bullets ricocheting and embedding themselves in the wood-paneled walls. With a yell, Angelus leapt in the air, flipped once, and came down. His shoes planting themselves in the closest guy's jaw. He started to fire at his companions while he was still in midair. He landed with a jarring thud, his knees taking the brunt of the impact. Using his feet, he grabbed the guy he was on top of, fell down as the other rockets started to fire at him. He lifted his legs up, and threw the guy on top of him, his body acting as a shield. The bullets tore into the rocket's back, but failed to penetrate their true target. Angelus freed his arm and fired his gun, empty, pumping bullets into 2 of them, their blood staining the walls as they fell. The surviving members ducked for cover. Angelus rolled the corpse off of his body, picked up his Heckler & Koch MP5 submachine gun and flattened himself up against the wall. The other rockets that were after him flooded the halls, so he opened fire. It was nearly impossible to miss. As the clip emptied, Angelus kept on firing with his Glock, and started running again. In mid-stride, he dropped the submachine gun, pressed the release button for the empty clip in his Glock, replaced with a fresh one, and put 2 bullets in one of the guys who was hiding, trying to ambush him in front of him. No sweat, he said to himself. Now to escape. Well, now this canvas is starting to look better. James said gleefully, like a giddy schoolgirl, who was just asked out by the guy of her dreams. James was still pinning Giovanni down, slashing his skin. Already, most of his face was crisscrossed in ragged scars. Giovanni's screams had been cut off by James stuffing some of the material of Giovanni's suit in his mouth. And the head of Team Rocket was all too painfully aware of what was going on. James wiped his brow with the back of his forearm, his hands covered in blood. Well, that's it for now, class. We will take a small lunch break and then we will resume. Well, take out your lunches. James told the imaginary class he saw in his mind's eye. James thrust his hand in a large bag next to him. Giovanni's eyes went wider. He knew what was in the bag. He started to thrash violently, trying to buck James off. James just shrugged and threw the contents in his hands on the tortured man's face. The salt landed on his face, causing more pain than Giovanni had ever felt in his life. He started to convulse and thrash, but it was of no use. Whenever he started to close his eyes and surrender to the blissful darkness, James made more slashes on his face. Giovanni managed to spit out the gag in his mouth. "James, please, stop," Giovanni whispered in between convulsions and screams. James seemed to be taken aback. "What are you begging? To me?" James asked, an incredulous look on his face. "Yes." "Well," James pondered, stroking his chin, "I guess I could stop my sadistic torture. And put a bullet in your head, or let you go." Giovanni nodded his head as fast as he could. James picked up the gun he had dropped, chambered a shot, and stood up. He aimed carefully at Giovanni's head. Giovanni closed his eyes, waiting for the bullet to come, for this one little bit of pain to take away all the rest. A shot was fired. Giovanni at first didn't register what was going on, thinking that something was wrong. Then the most intense pain he had ever felt, even more so than the flaying of his skin, erupted in his body. He hoped his brain would shut down, that it would be all done soon. That this was the fatal wound. He didn't want to live anymore, not after this. James blew the wafting smoke from the barrel of the gun, his expression calm and businesslike, an evil glint in his eye. "I never said which head." Everyone turned towards the gunshot, even Ash, who was almost unconscious. Then a series of gunshots rang out in the same direction. "James," Jessie whispered, and without even thinking about it ran towards the sound. Brock also ran with her. "Stay with Ash," he shot behind his shoulder. Misty needed no instruction on this. They raced to the farther end of the large auditorium. When they reached there, Brock almost threw up. The sight was so disturbing. James stood over Giovanni, and was systematically shooting all over his body, making sure the wounds wouldn't be fatal. Already, he had shot him in his shoulders, knees, wrists, almost all of his major joints. Brock did throw up when he saw the blood and the bullet wound around Giovanni's groin area. He retched nearby, emptying his stomach on the floors. Jessie stood in shock at what James was doing. James turned to her. At first, he seemed to look disorientated, as if he wasn't sure of what was going on. Then the glint came back to his eyes, the evil sadistic one. He handed the gun to her. "You get to finish him off," he said to her. Without hesitation, she aimed at him. Just before she pulled the trigger, Jessie and Giovanni locked eyes. "I said one day you'd pay. What a kick in the ass it's today," she told him. She emptied the clip in his chest. She dropped the gun, and spat on his body. "May he roast in hell." James followed her. "Amen to that. We have to go to the Pokémon storage facilities, get Meowth, Pikachu, and the other Pokémon, then we get out of here," Jessie said. They had rejoined the others. Brock was still feeling ill after what he saw, but nothing was said. "Where are they?" Misty asked, supporting Ash along with help from Brock. "It's luckily on this floor. But it's a bit of a walk." Misty and Brock turned towards the exit to the auditorium. "Then, what are we waiting for? Let's go." As they started off, Jessie and James lagged behind. "I'll be along in a minute. Just don't worry about me," James told her, giving her a short hug. "But James, where are you going?" Jessie asked him. "To take care of one more loose end. Rumika, but don't worry, I'll handle it." Jessie looked into his eyes, pleadingly. "James, you're weak. Don't go after her. She'll get her due, just come with us. Please." James looked away, knowing if he looked in her eyes long enough, he would do what she wanted. He didn't want her to know what he was planning, or doing. "No, Jessie. You don't understand, I have to do this," he whispered, his head lowered. "The others need you, go with them. I'll be there shortly." Jessie nodded reluctantly, kissed him quickly, and left to meet up with the others. James made sure she was gone, watching her leave. Then he turned around and walked over to where Rumika lay, still unconscious. He bent down and picked up a gun that was dropped by another rocket. Checking the clip, he nudged her awake. Her eyelids fluttered open, slowly and warily. She looked up at James, a bit of a smile on her face. Then her throbbing jaw reminded her of what he had done, of what he had said. James stood over her, The gun pointed directly in between her eyes. James, what are you planning to do? This is no longer amusing. Put that gun down, so you can be properly punished, she said in genuine annoyance. I should kill you right now, James said, his features uncannily cold, his voice cold. Rumika slammed her hand on the ground. That's it, James. Do I have to show you everything? Give me that gun, so I can show you how to threaten someone properly, she said angrily. James actually stepped back at that. What? He stuttered out. Rumika looked at him, clearly annoyed. Sometimes, James, the first wonder about you. I have to constantly punish you and remind you on how to do things. It just makes me so angry. Is this the way you are going to act when we get married? James flustered a surprised expression gave way to a grin and he started to laugh. Rumika, you mean to tell me that after all of this, you want to marry me? Why, of course, James, dear. I love you, Rumika replied, smiling at him. James stopped laughing. Rumika, I don't love you, much less like you. And how can you love me? You don't even know me. James dropped the gun on the ground and started to walk away. Rumika stared at him, his words piercing her heart. No matter how sick she seemed, no matter how crazy, she still had a heart. And her heart belonged to James. But, James, I do love you, she wailed, forgetting her proper decorum and manners. James turned back around. How could you love me? You have tortured me all this time, kidnapped me and my friends, hurt the woman I do love. That isn't love. Rumika felt a tear go on her cheek. You mean, you love that uncouth ruffian? James ran back to her and grabbed a fistful of her hair, holding her face close to his, a scowl all over his face. Don't you ever call her any of those names again. I can excuse anything you say about me, do to me, but don't you ever say or do anything to her. Get that through your proper and primped head. He screamed at her. He roughly let go, and left to go catch up with the others, leaving her there. More tears went down her cheeks, and she finally broke down, sobbing, even though it wasn't proper for a lady to cry like a little child. Bullets raced over Angelus's head as he ran down the hallways, ducking his head. Reaching to a side holster on his belt, he withdrew a Beretta 89 Standard. He jumped forward and did a tumble in the air, firing his guns at his pursuers. As gravity reclaimed him, he emptied his guns as he hit the hard floors. All of the bullets from the 9mm and the .22 met their marks. The rockets clotted the empty hallways, the dead and dying on top of each other. Angelus muttered a silent prayer for them all as he replaced the spent magazines and kept on going. Finally he reached his destination, the Pokémon storage facilities. He entered the door, and closed it. He looked at all the stolen and genetically altered Pokémon in the racks. It's about time this crap came to an end, he muttered to himself. He strode over to a computer and entered a few access codes. Soon, the equipment came to life. A few clicks here, a few clicks there and all of the Pokémon were being teleported to different centers across the island. "'Tis a beautiful thing, this technology is," he mused, as the last of the Pokémon were sent. He looked around the lab for anything useful, and came up with a few pounds of C4 and a transmitter. A smile formed on his face. He hooked the plastic explosives in all the places it would do the most harm, or good, and waited for the others. Angelus figured that if they survived, they would be heading here for their Pokémon. In about 10 minutes' time, the door opened slowly and cautiously. Angelus whipped around and aimed his guns. One at head level and the other at stomach level. One of the people outside saw him and ducked down screaming, "Oh, shit." Angelus recognized the voice. It belonged to one of the prisoners. "Hey, you sods. It's me, the guy that saved all your asses," he called out to them, smiling. They slowly walked in, hands raised, except for the orange-haired girl and the girl he had rescued from Giovanni. They were supporting the young Pokémon master who had gotten beaten severely. Angelus holstered the Beretta 89 and looked them all over. He was surprised to see that the bluish-haired guy was walking on his own power. "Well, I'll be damned. You should be the one getting the attention from those lovely ladies there," Angelus stated. The blue-haired man shook his head. "I'll be okay," he said matter-of-factly. Angelus nodded his head. "Pikachu," the beaten young man whispered. Angelus looked down at him. I take it, this is Ash Ketchum, the famous Pokémon master?" he asked. The two ladies nodded their heads quickly. Yeah. Hey, look, mister, I don't mean to sound ungrateful or nothing, but where are our Pokemon? We just need them and then we can leave, the tallest one said. Angelus turned around and faced him. Yeah, well, you can get them once we get out, okay? They are at the Pokemon centers. As are your gear, so you don't have to worry about a thing, he told him. Angelus then went over to the door and sat down. He opened it slowly and peered out. Seeing no one was there, he beckoned the others to follow him. As they scurried out, he stopped the blue-haired guy. Hey, buddy, you think you can handle this gun? Angelus asked, holding up the Beretta. He nodded his head. With that, Angelus handed him the Beretta and 3 spare clips. Then use it when you have to, Angelus said and left. Taking the lead of the group, James took the rear, and the group scurried down the hallways. They met no opposition as they headed towards the stairs. Angelus cursed. Stairs could easily become a concentrated kill zone. A person who had a decent shot could easily kill anyone who entered between the banisters. The undercover agent stopped the group and told them to stay. Then he dashed up the stairs as silently as he could, his back pressing against the wall, his guns raised. He snuck up to the service exit and peered out. It was clear. He ran back down and told the others. All right folks, it's time to go. They nodded their heads and climbed the stairs as quickly as possible, James in the lead, Angelus in the rear. By some miracle, or just plain luck, they managed to get out of the HQ main building. Surrounding the area were heavily armed cops and SWAT teams mobilizing. They saw the ragged group come out and all weapons were trained on them. Drop your weapons, an officer Jenny yelled through a speakerphone. James eagerly dropped the Beretta and raised his hands sky high. Angelus boldly strode out, his Glock in full view. Hey there, people, he yelled back, grinning like a Cheshire cat. All the guns were focused on him. He started to walk towards them, and he dropped the Glock on the ground. Stay right where you are, sir. The Jenny yelled out. Angelus ignored her until he was standing right next to her. As he strode over to the unbelieving officer, he leaned over and whispered in his ear, you guys so need better training. I'd have put a bullet in my ass the minute I kept on walking when you told me to stop. The Jenny's temper flared up. Oh, yeah, well, I'll rectify that mistake right now, she retorted. Angelus shrugged, the large grin still on his face. Well, enough of that, my friends here not only helped bring down Team Rocket, but they also need some medical attention. Can you provide us with any? The Jenny nodded her head, back to business. Yeah. She placed the speaker phone next to her lips and shouted out, all right. Step forward, please. Then she turned it to the back of the large mass of cops. And we need that ambulance, ASAP. Quote. Angelus started walking away, when the Jenny grabbed his arm. He turned around sharply. I did my business, now can I please go? He said, all humor gone from his voice. Jenny's eyes flashed angrily, even as some of the police officers went over to the others and helped them past the barricade. Now, you wait a second, mister. We need you to go downtown to file a statement. And get some information on the situation. You can't take off like that. Angelus reached into his leather jacket, and produced a folded manila folder and a micro-cassette recorder. Along with a few tapes to go along with it. I took the liberty of filing out a report for you, and some hard evidence against the organization. Now if you please, he explained and took back his arm. Officer Jenny started after him, but was stopped as a few officers passed by. By the time they passed out her line of vision, he was gone. Jenny scratched her head, and sighed in exasperation. What next? A bloody signal, she muttered under her breath as she got back her bullhorn and started ordering the officers around. That's it, I'll stop here. I hope did you enjoyed this video. If you do, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe and share with your friends.